Okay. I'm showing 6:30. If I can get everybody to their seats, we can get started. You're bringing up something. Kathy's bringing up something. Aragon. And Dominic's bringing up something. Okay. Oops. Let's get rid of this.
Can I give this to Lisa?
Hurry.
Hey, Paula.
Do what? Okay. Okay, the council meeting, August 15th, 2011, now come to order. Remember, times indicated next agenda items are approximate start times only. Please turn off all cell phones for the duration of the meeting. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Natal,
Here?
Councilman Morano,
Here.
Councilman Benson, Councilwoman Carson,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Snyder, Councilwoman Teeter, here, Councilman Diaz,
Here.
Councilman McEldowney,
Okay, he's still away.
and Councilman Bullock.
And he is presently testifying in front of Denver City Council and will be here as soon as he is done. Oh, that's new. Okay, everybody else did it? I'm still trying to learn, 9 meetings to go. Will the
Mayor.
audience, whoops, you okay? Will the audience please rise for a moment of silence and then join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? And I have 3 council people who want to speak. Do we want to start with Mr. Marino?
If in our prayers we could keep in mind Gina Salazar. She was the Deputy District Director for Congressman Polis and lost her battle with cancer recently.
Mayor Pro Tem Snyder?
Yes, I saw Beverly Aragon today, and she gave me an update on Bob, and he's doing better. He's been in and out of the hospital several times and in and out of rehab several times, but she reports that he's home and he's doing much better. So just want to continue our prayers for the Aragon family. Thanks.
Councilwoman Teeter.
Yes, and I would also like to extend the prayers to Denver Black, the owner and founder of Black Automotive in Derby.
Thank you. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, will staff please pass around the mic?
Oh, yes. Terry Rigo. Daniel O'Leary.
Tova Porgo.
Michael Cheney.
Larry Quintana. Guillermo Serna.
Gene Leffel, Board of Adjustment.
Joy Bishop.
John Howard, Information Technology.
Michelle Rogers, City Manager's Office.
Carolyn Keith, Parks and Recreation.
Greg Clements, Public Works Department.
Leanne Noel, Grant Administrator.
Roger Tinklenberg, Finance.
Jim Hayes, Community Development.
Cindy Hagerman, Neighborhood Services.
Rick Teeter.
Thank you.
Ms. Ryan Cordero, Government Relations.
Phil Baca, Chief of Police.
Brittany Morris Saunders, Director of Economic Development for Commerce City.
Thank you all for coming. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. Okay, a public comment roster was made available on the table at the entrance of council chambers who wish to address council. When I call your name, would you please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You're reminded that each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. City Council is reminded that they are not to engage in discussion or debate, but may ask clarifying questions, express concern when appropriate. City Manager will generally assign staff members to get the necessary information to solve issues. There's 3 people on the list for tonight. First person is Terry, is it Rigo? Rigo, yes. Thank you, sir. Please, and if you'll push the little red button that's on your left. There you go.
I see a light. Okay, so I am a building owner in Commerce City. I've owned 3 industrial buildings and 1 plat of land on the corner of 58th and Holly. I've owned them for 21 years, and I'm trying to get about three months ago or so, I was starting to do some due diligence to put an addition on one of the buildings. The property currently has 3 entry points into the property, all 3 of which we used to use early on back in the early 90s. But since about the late 90s, when the one tenant moved out, we quit using one of the gates off of Holly Street. And the gate is still there. The curb cut's been there forever. I did my due diligence. I went to the building department about 5 or 6 times. I went to the Public Works Department, talked to the city engineers. I even had them out of the property a couple times. And I also went to the fire department. I showed them my plans. When everything was basically approved, they said, yeah, you can go ahead. There's entry gate, you're grandfathered in, so on and so forth. So anyway, at that point, some other things happened in the future. Other questions came up. But I've been trying to get to a point where I can pull a permit here. And I've been told by the city engineer's office that I now cannot use this gate because, and quote unquote, one of the assistants to the city manager told me I cannot use the gate because I haven't used it for the last 6 months. There's a curb cut, there's a gate, there's a very important rule about having an entry gate a minimum of 150 feet from a corner. Well, this gate's 220 feet from a corner, and it is not around the blind side of a corner. In other words, the first right-hand turn you would make to enter this gate is about 700 feet away. And so my problem is I'm trying to get this thing solved so I don't get delayed here by 2 months, having to file a variance, and which could take 5 to 8 weeks or longer. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I met Mr. Benson a couple days ago and talked to some other people, and I'm just trying to figure out a way to solve this thing quickly. I don't see any danger with this. I have plans here, that I could show everybody, but I'm well beyond the 150 feet rule. I'm nowhere near a blind corner. This gate and curb cut's been there since 1982. I've owned the property since 1990. 21 years ago this month I purchased the property and pay the real estate taxes on time every year for 21 years. And so anyway, I've tried to contact the city manager's office and various people just trying to get this thing solved and figure out why can't I use this gate. The problem is if I put the addition on this building, the addition on one of the buildings is going to block another one of the entry gates to semi-trucks. It's not going to block it to cars or smaller vehicles or smaller trucks, but it's going to block it to semi-trucks. And so it's not a matter of I don't want to spend the money to move the... I've been told that the gate has to be 50 feet inside the property line. Supposedly this law was just changed about a year ago. There was some new development regulations that came into play that are saying now any entry gate on a property has to be 50 feet off the property. Well, this gate is... there's my 3 minutes. It makes the whole project, which is a beautiful building addition and a major improvement to this property in terms of paving, landscaping. This is a split-face block building, and it's going to generate more revenue, more real estate taxes. The tenant that I'm building it for is going to be hiring 5 to 10 more people. They have retail sales. They're growing miraculously in this economy. So
okay, thank you, Mr. Flannery. I can understand what he's saying. Would you be able to make whatever arrangements need to be made so that he understands what needs to be done and how to work this?
I'd be happy to get together. I am familiar with this issue from the Deputy City Manager, Mr. McBroom. I think he's been directly involved with this as well as the engineering staff. From all accounts, I understand that the legal requirement is a variance, but I'd be happy to sit down and look at it personally.
Okay. Mr. Rigo, if you'll get with him. Just so you know, Mr. Rigo, what I don't want to do from up here is I don't want this council to be directing staff to make changes unless staff has done everything they can possibly do with our citizens. I don't want to be making the rules different from up here. So if you will make sure you get with Mr. Rigo and see if you can work something out there. If you could also get back to us with some response. Mr. Rigo, you have the same chance. But I think it's going to be easier to be done at a staff level than to be done at a council level. Is that okay?
So do I make an appointment to meet with him then?
I would think you would go straight over to him right now. And
Actually, my assistant is here, and we can set that up.
that would be terrific, and you can do it immediately. How's
Okay.
that, sir?
Okay, good. That's awesome.
Okay,
Awesome.
listen, that's why we're here. Mr. Benson, did you have something to say?
Yes. Sir, do you have any kind of a diagram that you might be able to pass out to us so we can see exactly?
I do. I have copies of the site plan here. Would you like me to
I mean,
bring
do you
them
have
up?
copies for each of us?
Yes, I do, 9 of them.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see that. And also, I hope that
Pardon me?
if the staff is going to look at this situation, I hope that you'll look at it with the viewpoint of let's see how we can get this done and not see how we can't get it done. Just have a positive attitude in looking at it. Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Flannery, I don't want to see anything till staff has been done. If there's a council person who wishes it, they can get in touch with either you or Mr. Gaylor. But at this point, I don't want that extra information until I know that it wasn't able to be handled at a staff level. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Next person on the list is Larry Quintana. Evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council, members of the audience. My name is Larry Quintana. I reside at 7780 Magnolia Street in the unincorporated portion of Adams County, Commerce City, Colorado. And I'm here this evening to once again invite the members of the council to our annual Monaco Neighborhood Barbecue. We have it each year. I think I was told the other day this is our 8th year of having this. And every year we succeed in getting the funding to keep this tradition going. So I'm here to extend that invitation to all of the members of the City Council and also to extend the invitation to all of the candidates who are running for the council seats here in Commerce City, as well as those who are running for or have picked up their packages to run for the Adams 14 Board of Education. And again, this has been another tradition that I started 5 years ago in inviting the candidates to come out and meet and greet our community. And it has served us well to have both officials at the local level, the county level, and the state level come by and say hi to us. So again, this is an invitation to everybody, and we look forward to seeing you there. I will leave these flyers with perhaps here. So
Would you mind giving us a time and a date and a place?
Yes. Let me, the time is Friday, the 19th of August, from 5 to 7 p.m. And this year, once again, if everything goes according to the plan, we will have live music.
Great.
So we haven't had that in a few years, but this year we intend to have some live entertainment.
And which park will it be in,
And this
sir?
will be at the Centennial Park, right north of Monaco Elementary School. And just kind of a footnote, I don't know if you recall, I think it was 5 years ago, Mayor, we were having a discussion at our barbecue, and you expressed your concern regarding wanting to see more people of color participate in our elections. And I don't know, I know there's some in the city council race, but in the Adams 14 race, I believe we have 4 individuals who have expressed desire to participate in our district. And I think that's great to have, as we say, one community pulling together for all of our people. Thank you. Hope to see you there.
Thank you very much, sir. Next person on the list is Jean Leffel. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Gene Leffel, 6530 Brighton Boulevard, Garden Terrace subdivision of Commerce City, established in 1922. I wanted to come and speak on two subjects. Once, I wanted to thank the city for the outreach picnic. I thought that was very nice at Pioneer Park. The new arrangement seems to work very, very well. I really enjoyed that very thoroughly. But my main purpose in coming here is to remind everybody that tomorrow night, the Cars Club will be hosting another meeting. We've been having them for 7 years on the third Tuesday every month. And we'll be talking about the proposed medical waste disposal facility again. This is the last real chance that citizens are going to have discussions on this matter before it goes to the county commissioners on the 25th. And many people have expressed their discontent with having this type of a facility well within the growth boundary of our city, right by the flea market, in really a major population area. I think that Commerce City's probably had enough trash hauled in here already. We certainly don't need all the medical waste from Pueblo to Cheyenne and who knows where else brought to our city, treated in our city, maybe it's safe, maybe it's not, who knows, and then disposed of here in our city. We just don't really need that here. And so I'm inviting all the candidates, copied Larry on that one, anybody else in the city that's interested, or maybe if you're not in the city, you could still come. We'll have refreshments, no live band, just, pizza, pop, chips, salads, cookies, stuff like that. And we'll have a discussion on how people can best convey their discontent with this to the Adams County Commissioners. And that's at the Rose Hill Grange at 6 p.m., That's at the corner of 69th and 68th, excuse me, I don't even know where I'm going. 68th and Colorado Boulevard, and I believe the correct address is 4001 68th Avenue. And everybody's invited. If you're concerned about bacteria, radiation, other kinds of biological things being brought into your city by the truckload, literally tons of it every day is what they say they can process. You need to get here and get together with us and try and get a viable strategy to explain to the folks up in Brighton that we really don't want or need that in our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Benson?
What time again? Did you say 6 to 8 tomorrow?
6, 8.
We'll be there at 6 p.m. and we'll stay all night if people want to. I really don't want to stay all night, but we don't have any time limit to close that discussion. If we've got people there that want to talk, come up with constructive, viable ways to explain this to people, I'll stay there all night if that's what it takes.
Okay, but it starts at 6, okay.
Starts at 6 p.m. at the Rose Hill Grange, 68th in Colorado. I believe the correct address is 4001 68th Avenue, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir.
That's on the tomorrow. I believe that's the 16th of July. I don't even know what month it is. Well, I didn't know where I was going, and I don't know what month it is. It'll be August 16th, tomorrow night. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. There's only one item on the consent agenda tonight, which is really nice. So I would be open to a motion to approve the consent agenda. Ms. Snyder?
Move approval of the consent agenda. Council seated.
Ms. Teeter?
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Will the city attorney please read the title?
Title of Ordinance 1864 reads as follows: An ordinance amending the 2011 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of the Department of Justice JAG Byrne Grant funds in the amount of $58,224 for the support of low-cost recreational and delinquency prevention programs for the youth and teens in Commerce City, and the authorization of the expenditure thereof.
Had a motion and a second. City attorney's read the title. Request a roll call vote, please. Mr. Gaylor, yes, I did forget. I'll do it right now. Next, as soon as the vote comes through.
I forgot to remind
Okay, the vote is 7 yeses. Consent agenda is approved. Thank you. We've had a request to amend the agenda. We've had a request from Councilperson McEldowney, who is not here tonight, to again move citizen communication discussion to a time when he is here, and being that we did the same thing for Ms. Teeter last week, I would be open to a motion to approve that. Mr. Benson, did you want to make the motion?
No, I would make the opposite motion. This thing was brought up May 23rd. It's
Okay.
now almost
That's-
3 months later, and we put it off one time. I mean, if somebody's absent for the next 3 or 4 weeks, we're not going to get to it before November. And it's just something that's so simple. I don't know why it's taken 3 months for this to get to our
Okay.
agenda, but I would be very much against postponing this again.
Okay. Ms. Snyder, did you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we postpone the meeting until Councilman McEldowney returns. I mean, we did it for Ms. Teeter. It wouldn't be fair if we do it for one and we don't do it for another one. I
Okay.
think we have to keep it fair.
Do we have a second on the motion? Ms. Teeter?
Yes, I second the motion. Since it was done for me, I only feel it fair to be done for Mr. McEldowney.
Okay. I have a motion and a second.
I feel it is very important
Yes.
for the discussion to take place, but however, we need input from all.
Thank you. Mr. Benson, do you want some discussion on that before we take a vote?
No, I think I've pretty well aired my opinion on
Okay.
that subject.
Had a motion and a second to move citizen communication from the agenda to a date in the future when Mr. McEldowney can be here. Voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Okay. Did you say no or yes? Which? No? Okay. So that's 2 noes and 5 yeses. So it does pass. It'll be moved to another date. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is Resolution 2011-42. It was not included in the consent agenda because it requires a separate voice vote. It's an application for local parks and outdoor recreation grant from the State Board of the Great Outdoor Colorado Trust Fund for the improvements in Commerce City to Fairfax Park. Is there any discussion by City Council? Discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Marino?
So I just had a couple of questions on the actual application, if staff is prepared to answer them. Thanks, Leon.
Good evening.
I saw here that the actual request is for $276,000.
Correct.
From GOCO, is that correct? Does that include matching funds on behalf of the city, or is that the full appropriation that we're looking for?
No, that's just the strict amount that we're asking from GOCO.
Okay. Will there be a matching component on the city's part?
No.
No. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Teeter, did you want to make a motion? Yes. Oh, Ms. Carson?
I'm a little confused because I thought maybe it was matching funds, and that's why we were having to approve it.
No.
Do we typically approve for you
yes.
to write grants?
Each grantor, what they'll do sometimes is, as part of their grant application, they will put on there that it has to go before our board, just to
Okay.
inform you that we are going to apply for this. If you have any questions or don't wish to apply for it, this is when you would say, no, we're really not going to go after these dollars for this project at this time.
Okay.
And that's all that is. They just want to make sure that you are aware that we are going after these funds. And not all grants require that. Some do, some don't. It just depends on what their requirements are.
Okay. Like I said, I was a little confused because I thought, well, maybe it's matching funds, and that's
No.
why we're approving it, but okay, thank you.
Yeah, they just want to make sure that the city council is supporting the application, and that's why we bring those kind of grant applications before you. Some, as Leanne indicated, do not require that assurance. They're satisfied with staff's signature and application, but there are others that require city council approval, and that's why we attach a copy of the resolution with the application.
Correct.
Thanks for that explanation.
Did you have another comment, Mr.
Yes,
Mayor?
I think, mine and Councilwoman Carson's confusion just arose from, on the council communication sheet, it does say expenditure required, so that made us think that there was an expenditure request for this.
Yeah, it gets a little confusing to me too on that part, because it wants to know your total expenditure required. So whether it is just the grant expenditure, or if it's the grant expenditure and a match, or whatever, that's included in that line item.
Great. When are we expected to hear back about whether we are granted the money
The
or not?
application itself isn't even due, I don't believe, until the very end of this month. But because the resolution has to be included with the application, we had to go ahead of that and make sure that that could be signed and done for that application. So I would imagine we'll get it probably November, we'll get notification.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Teeter?
Yes, move approval of Resolution 2011-42.
Ms. Snyder?
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution. Mr. Marino, did you have another? Oh, no, okay. Okay. Thank you. I've had a motion and a second. Will the city attorney please read the title?
Title of Resolution 2011-42, resolution authorizing an application for a local parks and outdoor recreation grant from the State Board of the Great Outdoors Colorado Trust Fund for improvements in Commerce City for Fairfax Park.
Okay, I've had a motion and a second. City attorney has read the title. Request a voice vote, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next item, our ordinance is on first reading. There are two of them tonight. The first is Ordinance 1868, an ordinance amending the 2011 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by recognition of a grant from the State of Colorado Department of Local Affairs, Division of Emergency Management. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address council on this particular ordinance? If not, I'll entertain a motion to introduce Ordinance 1688 as by council is seated to approve the ordinance on first reading. Ms. Snyder?
Yes, move approval of ordinance 1868. Council is seated.
Mr. Diaz?
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 1868. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the city attorney please read the title?
Title reads, an ordinance amending the 2011 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of the State of Colorado Department of Local Affairs Division of Emergency Management grant in the amount of $40,000 to offset operating costs within the emergency management budget and the authorization of the expenditure thereof.
Okay. I've had a motion and a second. City attorney has read the title. Request a roll call vote, please. Vote is 7 yeses. Ordinance 1868 is passed on first reading. Thank you. The next is Ordinance 1869, ordinance submitting 4 ballot questions to the registered electors of the City of Commerce City, Colorado at the regular municipal election to be held on Tuesday, November 1st, 2011. Now ask City Attorney Gaylor to review Ordinance 1869.
Okay, this ordinance comes before the City Council pursuant to your direction to my office to prepare 4 ballot issues for consideration at the November 1 election. The 4 ballot issues are there are 4 ballot issues, 3 of which are charter amendments, 1 of which is an ordinance that would be a requirement for an assessment of a tax on the sale of marijuana or marijuana products in the City of Commerce City in an amount not to exceed 7% of the gross taxable amount. That's item 1, ballot issue 1. Ballot issue number 2 is whether the city charter should be changed to provide that the organization meeting of the City Council would follow certification of the results of the election. As you may recall, the charter as it's presently written took into account an April election, which then would have an organization meeting following that election. But when we have a November election, the county clerk's office is involved in the election, and we may not have a certification of the results of the election until after the candidates that won the election are sworn in under our present charter. And so that's why it needs to be amended to have our swearing-in ceremony after certification of the results of the election. That's charter amendment that would be required to change that date for the organization meeting of the City Council. That's ballot issue 2. Ballot issue 3 is to change the charter to remove all City Council members from the Planning Commission so that only citizens of the City of Commerce City would be qualified to sit as members of the Planning Commission. And ballot issue number 4 provides for a change in one section of the city charter and clarify any other portions of the city charter. If you remember, that's the clause that gave me some concern at our last council meeting about how much we'd have to amend, because there are numerous sections in the charter that refer to the mayor as being part of the city council. And I was concerned that we would have to amend all of those sections. As it turns out, in looking at the charter, we do not have to amend each section of the city charter that refers to the mayor as being a member of the city council. If we change the crucial section of the charter, section 4.1, it simply says the mayor is a separate office from the other members of the city council, and that any other provision in the charter is clarified to allow for the mayor to be a separate office from the city charter, or from the other members of the city council under the city charter. And so there's no confusion. This provision will not give the mayor any additional powers such as veto powers or any super vote. It just means that all provisions of the charter remain the same except for term limits only. The mayor's position would be a separate position from other members of the city council. The result being is that somebody could be sitting on the city council for 2 terms, and then at the expiration of those 2 terms could run for mayor and qualify, if elected, to the position of mayor, and the term limits would not preclude a person from doing that. Otherwise, the charter is not changed in any respect with regard to the powers of the mayor. I just wanted to make that clear because I had been asked a question or two regarding whether this provision, if changed, would alter the powers or authority of the mayor. It only deals with term limits.
Okay.
So if you have any questions, I'm certainly available to answer them.
Yep.
Otherwise,
I have a couple that have lit up. Mr. Benson?
Yes, didn't we discuss last time that there would be a total 16-year limit? Is that going to be a part of this?
Right, because that's written in the state constitution. You're limited to 2 terms, and your term limits is 2 terms. So if you call the mayor a separate position, that means the mayor's term is, the mayor's total term of office would be 8 years, and as a member of city council would be 8 years.
What if somebody ran for at-large for 4 years, and then they ran for mayor and served for 4 years, and then they ran for at-large again for another 4 years, and then mayor again for their 16th year?
You have to...
Because you wouldn't be tacking any 2 consecutive terms onto each other.
As under the present Constitution, if you sit out now as a member of City Council, you sit out for 4 years and you can run again.
Right.
Likewise, the position of mayor, if you sit out position of mayor for 4 years.
So you could continue to do that forever?
You could go back and forth.
At-large mayor?
Similar to what the state House of Representatives and what the state Senate is now, you can continue to alternate positions if that came about. if you change the position to read that way.
Well, that would be two different houses. We only have one house here.
Well, as an analogy.
All right.
Ms. Carson?
I thought it was something different, but
Mr. Gaylor, just to be absolutely clear, it would be a maximum of 2 terms someone could set as a council person, correct? And a maximum of 2 terms someone could be seated as mayor.
Well, if we wanted to limit it to that extent, I need to change this to read for a total of 16 years, because what could happen, not likely, but could happen, person could sit as a member of the city council for 8 years, then run for mayor for 8 years, and then run for city council for 8 years, and keep going back and forth. That's possible.
My intentions with this was that 2 terms max each position.
Okay? Without being able to go back to the other position.
Right.
All right, give me a moment and let me correct that.
And can I just say, and nothing against the candidate who is now running for mayor, but I'm sure everyone out there knows that it's uncontested. I don't believe it would be an uncontested race at this point if we had those conditions already. The mayor, whether he would choose to or not, would be allowed to continue to run. Right now, he can't because of the way that, like I said, whether you chose to or not. The people up here who are term limited as council members would be able to run for mayor.
Okay, now, remember, this provision will not go into effect until after this election. So this election would not take into account any change that you've made.
But I just want people to understand the difference of what this could be today if this was something that we already had on the charter instead of what we have.
True.
And I have had a few people a little confused at thinking that this was unlimited term limits, but it is very limited for the fact that 2 terms in each position and you're done.
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Carson, I just wanted to ask a clarifying question, because when you amend a charter, there's that law of unintended consequences. And so I wanted to ask the question, to total of 16 years, you may have discussed this last meeting, but if they sit out 4 years, can they come back for another 16? Okay. 16, basically lifetime total. Okay.
And just before we get to anybody else, just so that everybody understands my feelings, it's not that this hasn't been the best job I've ever had. It's just after a certain amount of time, you're tired and you need to go on to something else. Mr. Gaylor, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you can't change the state constitution by amending our charter. So the state constitution says after serving your term, if you sit out for a term, then you can come back and run again. So we can't change that. So you say a maximum of 16 years, that means consecutive, but after 4 years elapsed, you could come back and run again under the state constitution.
So I have misunderstood when I have talked to council people across the state, and when they say that that's their charter that states that that's the max and you can never come back, because I have heard that from other.
Yeah, you can't say never, but you can say you can't come back under the state constitution to start serving your term again and alternate between mayor and city council members.
Okay. But would it be a max of 16 years?
16 years, but if they sit out for 4, then they could come back.
And start the 16 over?
If they, yes. State constitution provides that if you sit out 1 term of office, you're eligible to run again. I can't change that.
And our charter can't supersede that?
Right, can't change that. we can provide that they can't keep alternating back and forth continuously. And that's what I was in the process of doing here now.
Okay.
Just like now, present members of City Council, you run for 8 years, you sit out 4, you can run again. And that's in the state constitution.
I guess I didn't realize that we were tied. I thought we could supersede that. And I thought
Good.
other cities had, but I guess evidently I have missed.
Well, what they might have been saying is that 16 years max, meaning between mayor and members of city council continuously.
Mhm.
If you go from one to the other, back to the other, max is 16 years. But if they sit out the 4 years, then they can come back and start all over again, just like you can today.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Marino?
I can certainly appreciate where Councilwoman Carson was coming from on this issue. But as Mr. Gaylor just stated, our charter cannot supersede the state constitution. I can't support a lifetime career of being a local politician. We've seen the same thing happen at the House and the Senate. Neither of those have term limits to any effect. I just don't, I think it's too important to have new leadership, new blood step up sometimes. So I'm not comfortable with this ordinance with the explanation that Mr. Gaylor provided.
Mr. Benson? And again, just before you get started, Mr. Benson, this now is just questions for Mr. Gaylor. What we'll do is ask for a motion, get a second, and then do discussion on how we feel on each side of it. Okay, Mr. Benson.
Okay, I wanted to say how I felt. I don't
Okay.
have any further questions of Mr.
Okay.
Gaylor, so.
Then what I would do now is I'd ask for a motion, and I think I'm siding with what you're saying, but I'm going to have to see how we go on it. I'm looking for a motion to approve 1869. Mr. Marino.
Sorry, this is a question for Mr. Gaylor. On this ordinance, you know, we're packaging these ballot questions into one ordinance. Not all of these ballot questions were unanimous on this council. So I would support a motion to sever each ballot question so they can be voted on separately.
That's appropriate.
Wonderful.
Yeah, what you could do is to vote on each ballot question, and then once we have decided what the ballot questions are for the ordinance, then you vote on the ordinance as you have submitted it.
Great.
Separate them out so you could vote no on one.
If
Okay,
it's
so I have a
appropriate, I
motion, just first thing before we do anything, we're not going to do 1868. You're making a motion to separate them out. We will vote on each one of them individually. Does that still leave them as ordinance 1869? Or will they need to be 4 numbers?
No, it'll
If
be
it
all,
passes.
it'll be all one ordinance. We're just
Okay.
voting on
Terrific.
separate provisions
Okay.
of the one
So I have a
ordinance.
motion right
When the
now.
time comes
just-
to approve it, we'll approve it as amended, as we've
Okay.
voted. So I would make a motion to sever each ballot question to be voted on separately by the council.
Okay, Mr. Benson?
Second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve just separating them out. Is there any discussion on that particular item? Seeing none, voice vote okay, Mr. Gaylor? Voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. So we will take each one as a motion, Mr. Gaylor?
That's correct.
Okay, so do we want to start with one? And I'll
Let's
take
start
the
with
motion,
one.
you'll read one, and then we'll vote on it. Ms. Teeter, did you want to make the motion on the first one?
So moved, Mr. Gaylor.
Mr. Diaz?
Second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve the first item. Any discussions? Did you have discussion, Mr. Marino?
Yes, I would just like to request roll call vote on each question.
That'd be great. We can do that,
Right.
Mr. Gaylor. Roll call vote on each one. We are voting, well, it's the one that, yes, it will be medical marijuana, but Mr.
Right.
Gaylor will read it before we vote on it.
And I'll just read the applicable portion of
Okay.
the ordinances. Number one is whether the City of Commerce City should impose an additional tax in an amount not to exceed 7% of the gross taxable amount paid or charged for purchasing marijuana, marijuana paraphernalia, marijuana-infused products, and synthetic marijuana products, and to spend revenues therefrom to promote public safety.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the first one. The city attorney has read it. Now it's discussion. Mr. Benson?
I'm looking at Article 10, Section 20, subsection 3, or let's see, 4 or 5. I think it's subsection 3. Don't we have to name a specific amount of taxes, shall taxes be increased by a dollar amount according to Tabor? And not just say that it's going to be 7%? Aren't we supposed to have to name a dollar amount? Or shall debt be increased by a dollar amount? I don't know that this is going to pass.
Well, yes, we should. And since that number is really rather nebulous, most cities have been saying $100,000, unless it happens to be Denver or a city with a lot of outlets. So
then
I would suggest putting in, that point is well taken, $100,000, not to exceed $100,000. But that's for the council to decide, because we have no idea what kind of revenue that would be. And that's just for the first year, not to exceed $100,000. What that means is if it happens to be more than $100,000, then that would be excess revenue, and in order to retain it, we'd have to have a vote of the people. But I think $100,000 is certainly a safe number.
Well, then I would move that we amend the subsection 1 to include that specific dollar figure so that we can be in compliance with Article 10, Section 20, which is Tabor.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Teeter?
Yes, with the new amendments, I make a motion for section number 1, please.
Mr. Diaz?
I second that motion.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussions?
Well,
Do you need to read that again, sir?
I have the intent here, and if the council has the intent, it would be the same as what I read before, but it would refer to a revenue not to exceed $100,000 in fiscal year 2012 and subsequent years, whatever that amount would be. That covers us if the amount increases in future years.
Okay. Thank you. Motion and a second. City Attorney's read the title. Request a roll call vote, please.
This is a roll call vote on the on number 1 as amended. Yes. All right. Thank you.
Vote is 8 yeses, so the first one is approved, sir. Thank you. I'll now open to a motion on the second one, which is the organizational meeting, but Mr. Gaylor will read that. Mr. Benson, did you want to make the motion?
I would move that subsection 2 of Ordinance 1869, I would move the passage of subsection 2.
Mr. Marino?
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve the second section. Mr. Gaylor, would you read the second section?
Whether the city charter of the City of Commerce City should be changed to provide that the organization meeting of the City Council be held on the second Monday following certification of the results of the election of the members of the City Council.
Got a motion and a second. City Attorney's read the title. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, request a roll call vote, please. Vote is 8 yeses. The second one is passed, sir. We will now go on to the third one, which is the charter amendment having to do with Planning Commission. Mr. Benson, did you want to make that motion?
I will so move that subsection 3 be passed.
Mr. Marino?
Second the motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve the third subsection. Mr. Gaylor, would you read the title, please?
Whether the city charter of the City of Commerce City should be changed to remove all city council members from membership on the Planning Commission.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. City Attorney's read the title. Any further discussion? Seeing none, request a roll call vote, please. Hey, Trace. Seven yeses and 1 no. Thank you very much. That one will pass also. The last item is reference term limits. Ms. Teeter? On the third one?
Yeah.
No, what we do is a first and a second. City Attorney will read it, and then it will go into discussion.
And I needed to.
Yes. This is strictly for the motion.
Right, move
Okay.
approval of section number 4.
Ms. Carson? Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the fourth item. Mr. Gaylor, would you read the title, please?
Whether the city charter of the City of Commerce City should be changed to amend section 4.1 and to clarify all other proportions of the city charter to provide that the mayor shall, for purposes of term limits as provided in section 11 of Article 18 of the Colorado Constitution, be considered a position separate and apart from other members of the City Council, with the total consecutive years of service not to exceed 16 years.
Okay. I had a motion and a second. City Attorney has read its title. We're now in discussion. Ms. Teeter.
Yes, Ms. Carson, I hope you don't change your mind, because I'm going to commend what you just said. The current mayor's race would not be as it is now if the wording in the current charter is the way it is. I am highly in support of this. There are many highly qualified current and past council members that were unable to run for the mayor's position due to the reading in the current charter, so I will be in support of this.
Mr. Benz.
Mayor?
Whoops, sorry. I'm sorry?
Who made the motion and the second on this
Ms.
one?
Teeter and Ms. Carson.
Thank you.
Mr. Benson?
Well, with that amendment, I can support subsection 4.
Mr. Marino?
I will not be supporting this ballot issue. When I ran in 2009, the City Council placed a term limit question to allow 3 terms as a council member or mayor, and it failed 2-1, nearly 2-1. I think the voters of Commerce City have said we want fresh voices, we want new people to step up, to take leadership positions within our city. This is even, in my opinion, worse than the term limit initiative that was proposed in 2009. That would have given 12 years. Now we're going to up that into 16 years. 16 years of consecutive back-to-back as a council member or a mayor, and then you simply sit out 4 years and you run 16 years again. That's something I can't support.
Ms. Carson?
Because some of this is confusing me. According to Mr. Gaylor, right now, the way state legislature reads is you can set out 4 years and you can continue to run. This would not change that. So somebody could make a lifetime practice of running, and if they could win an election, could continually keep coming back. That is not going to change. We are not approving for everybody on here to do that, because the mayor is only one seat. There is only one person on here who would be able to do that back to back and come up with 16 years. Not everybody sitting here could do it. Mr. Marino, if you sat here for 8 years, I would hope that you would be given the chance, if you so chose to run as mayor of this city, that you would be able to do it. I sat up here with fellow council people that I know would have considered, I can't say they would have ran for the mayor, but I can guarantee you they would have considered it. I don't know anybody other than Mr. Natal may be sitting there wanting to run as the mayor again. Like I said, it is not an open thing that everybody sitting up here is going to be able to do 16 years, be able to do this back to back. It is only one person that would be afforded this luxury, and that's the person who ran for mayor and who won. And I do believe that this city is missing out on the expertise of a council person who has done that many years setting up here. It's the same thing we talk about the Planning Commission, that they've done all those years. They've learned the city. They know it in and out. Well, by the time you've done 8 years here, I would like to afford you the right then to run as mayor if you so chose to.
Mr. Benson?
Yes, thank you. You know, the whole issue of term limits is kind of a two-edged sword. You lose the benefit of people with experience, but you get new blood, as Mr. Marino has stated. And the issue the statement that I hear a lot is, well, don't we have term limits every 4 years because it's called an election? And if people don't want you to be reelected, then you're going to be term limited after one term. So I really think this is a good balance to accomplish what we're trying to do, and that is to make the mayor a separate member of this council and not just included in the definition of being on the city council. I think that's what we're trying to do, to say it's a separate position. So I will be supporting this.
Mr. Marino?
I said it in 2009, and I'll continue to say it. I believe that if the President of the United States can do his job in 8 years, it should be no different at the local level.
Mr. Diaz?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So as it presently stands, we can serve for 8 years, whether it's on city council and then mayor. And then you sit out for 4, and then you can go on for 4, and then you can get off for 4, so on and so forth, correct? Right. But as this is proposed, it is 8 years as council, for example, 8 years for mayor, right, off for 4 years, but then you can be on again for the next 16. Okay. Just want to make sure I'm understanding that correct.
Yeah. The way it currently stands, this is how it currently is. You can serve 4 years as council member, and if you serve another 4 years as council member, you cannot run for mayor. Your second term, you have to run for mayor, because they are all in one, the definition, and this is just separating the title of mayor from the rest of the other 8 council members.
When you say second term, though, that means the next 8 years as opposed to... Okay.
Next 4 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Bullock?
I will be supporting this. This was brought up in, I think it was either 2006 or 2006, and this same, as it is written now, only lost, I think it was 6 votes was the difference between this winning and losing then. I will be supporting this because I think that the mayor should be a separate office from the council and be allowed to run after he is a councilman if he chooses to. And as Ms. Carson said, the only one person can do this, and only if you're elected by the citizens. So if you run 4 years or 8 years as council and the citizens don't deem you worthy of a mayor material, you will not be elected. So I will be supporting this part of the ordinance.
Okay. My 2 cents, having sat here. There are 2 people sitting on each side of me who I know, had they run for mayor when I ran, would have beaten me easily. But they didn't run. But I am with Mr. Marino. I am for term limits. There is no doubt in my mind that there are people out in our city now who run big businesses, little businesses, or work for people who could sit right up here with the common sense to do this job. And I am not, I know it's going to sound horrible, but I don't have the confidence in the voters. They vote name recognition. We had somebody run last time. He got 1 vote for every sign he had in the city. I don't have that same respect, and I know that's horrible, and I'm going to get all kinds of nasty emails, but it's okay, it's how I believe. There's no way. I think 8 years up here, you've done what you needed to do, and it's time to move on and let a fresh face up here. It just doesn't make sense to me. Mr. Marino.
Just once more, I mean, what we're talking about here is potential for 32 years under having the same person on council. A 4-year break in between, absolutely, but 32 years.
Oh, somebody might.
The way I think we have it currently set up, that individual could not have that same opportunity. No.
Okay. So we've had the motion, we've had the second, we've had our discussion. I don't see anybody's name up here. Mr. Gaylor has read the title. Request a roll call vote, please. Showing 5-3, so it does pass. Mr. Gaylor, I guess, as it sits. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move away from the agenda into study items.
No, wait. Now we have to vote on.
Oh,
the
I'm
entire
sorry.
ordinance.
You have to vote on the whole thing since we
Right.
approved all four. Is that how it goes?
Right.
Now, here's the question. Oh, I'll wait. We'll do the motion and the second, and then I'll ask my question on discussion. Somebody want to make the motion? Ms. Teeter.
Yes, move approval of ordinance 1869 on first reading.
Do I have a second, Mr. Diaz?
Second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Do you have to read all those again, Mr.?
I'm afraid so.
Okay. Would the city attorney please read the title?
An ordinance submitting to the registered electors of the City of Commerce City, Colorado, the regular municipal election to be held on Tuesday, November 1, 2011, the following ballot questions. 1, whether to raise revenues not to exceed $100,000 in the first fiscal year, 2012, to impose an additional tax in an amount not to exceed 7% of the gross taxable amount paid or charged for purchasing marijuana, marijuana paraphernalia, marijuana-infused products, and synthetic marijuana products, and to spend city revenues therefrom to promote public safety. 2, to whether the city charter of the City of Commerce City should be changed to provide that the organization meeting of the City Council be held on the second Monday following certification of the results of the election of the members of the City Council. 3, whether the city charter of the City of Commerce City should be changed to remove all City Council members from membership on the Planning Commission. And 4, whether the city charter of the City of Commerce City should be changed to amend Section 4.1 and to clarify all other portions of the city charter to provide that the mayor shall, for purposes of term limits as provided in Section 11 of Article 18 of the Colorado Constitution, be considered a position separate and apart from other members of the city council, with the total consecutive years of service not to exceed 16 years as mayor and a member of the city council, setting forth the ballot title, providing for notice of the election, providing for conduct of the election, and providing further details in relation to the foregoing.
Had a motion and a second. City attorney has read the title. Discussion on this particular item. Seeing none, I just have one question. I am so strong against the fourth one that it will make me vote no on the entire thing. Is there a problem with that?
The only thing that would happen is if a majority of others feel that way and the motion fails, then somebody that voted on the prevailing side could come back with another motion to approve the ballot titles or the ballot issues as amended, including only the first 3 issues.
Okay, thanks. Okay, we have a motion and a second. City Attorney has read the title. Request a roll call vote, please. Okay, the vote is 7-1. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Now we can move on to the steady side. Mr. Flannery, who will come forward, I can probably guess, to present the presentation on the budget? And are you going to start this?
I will start this, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor. Thank you very much. Last week we got together and discussed the economy on the federal, state, and local levels, and talked about the CIP projects and general budget overview. And there was a lot of good discussion, and I want to thank you all for that discussion. That's exactly what these study sessions are all about. And so we really do appreciate the feedback, and we look forward to that as we go along, leading up to the retreat in September. Tonight we'll look at the department requests, the options for filling the gap between revenues and expenditures, and as you'll see, that gap is really zero based on how we looked at filling the gap. However, there was some discussion last week, and we're going to have a presentation on August 29th from Public Works, specifically on refuse and the whole discussion of charging a fee for trash collection. So based on if that goes forward or not, that gap could change. And so I think as staff, we're looking at those contingencies in case the council decides as a majority to go against charging that fee. That's one issue. And so we have balanced the budget based on the recommendation you'll see tonight, and we'll look at the 2012 tonight.
Okay.
So our philosophy in the budget is to obviously balance budget where ongoing expenditures match ongoing revenues, evaluating the expenditures in current year and next year's budget. We direct one-time monies towards one-time expenditures and capital projects, and you've seen some evidence of how we've done that this year currently. We keep our workforce whole, and I've said this since I've been here for 4 years. Employees are our number one resource. We can spend money on capital equipment for a blader or a sweeper, but unless you have personnel in there to operate them, it's not going to happen. So they are our number one priority. We provide first-class service to our citizens and public, maintain current levels of service, continually improve the operational efficiency of the city. We evaluate all options, and those options include sometimes what might be qualified as a wacky option. Lack of a better word. I mean, I think at one point several years ago we talked about turning one of the options was making the Buffalo Run golf course into open space. Obviously, that is not an option that we recommend, but it's setting the bookends of the discussion to say here are the different extremes that we could talk about. We want to position the city for sustainable economic growth and through economic downturns, and we look at the robust growth of the city through our policies and through the budget process. We are very conservative in how we approach the budget, and I think it's been successful, and we've had very positive responses throughout the last 4 years, and some of the worst years in my career in budget from a national and local standpoint, and we've come through with small growth in our reserves. So that is a very positive thing that I think you should all be proud of as well, sitting as the elected body. We maintain healthy reserves and use them as a last resort. As I mentioned, I think a couple weeks ago, we have a reserve of 23%. We have an internal, as you remember, a policy of reserves at 20% of our budget, and we have different layers and levels of access to that. And each layer you get down is a harder bar to meet. And Tabor requires a minimum of 3%. So we have 3% by Tabor plus 20% by our own mechanisms, which is the reason why we have an A bond rating. And we're catching up to the U.S. right now. I knew you were going to say that. We continue to implement the city council goals and various approved city plans, as you've seen through the last few years. Continue to maintain high levels of service, obviously, is always our goal, and I think you'll see tonight that the chief is doing that and expanding upon it. And I think you'll see that throughout the presentations of the departments as we go along. Maintain city's ability to weather the recession. As I mentioned, we're very conservative and even have had small growth in our reserves in regard to budgeting. We take care of what we have. That means if we have capital, then we make sure that we're maintaining it. The old adage of a stitch in time saves nine comes to mind. I mean, we go in and we do coal patching on roads up in Frontera because that is a life-saving mechanism for those roads. There's questions sometimes that come up why we're doing that. Well, that's exactly why, because we're trying to keep the maintenance of those roads to the best ability. We provide for our employees, and you'll see through the discussions as we go along to September 12th that you'll see how we're doing that through our different benefits and salary proposals. We position the city to take advantage of opportunities. Those examples, as we've done, is the dog track and King Soopers are two that come to mind right away and recent. Without the incentive program and without taking that opportunity to approve that incentive program, we may not have had King Soopers. The city is instrumental in the reason that King Soopers is going in. The dog track, we have many plans that we're moving forward on, and that is an opportunity that will actually establish a keystone, a foundation for the future of that region, and will benefit the overall city. Let's see. Got to make sure I'm on the right one. Budget accomplishments. Well, there's many accomplishments that we've made. But specifically, we moved away from using one-time dollars to fund operations. And that is key because, obviously, operations is a recurring cost. So every year, you have a certain amount of costs that go along with just maintaining and operating the city. We were using one-time monies to do that. And that's something that you don't want to do because, basically, you have to count on one-time monies every year to do that. We've been lucky in that regard. And we've also been very studious about how we apply those one-time monies. We've moved vulnerable funds, as Mr. Tinklenberg explained last week, out of the general fund to the CIP, which also allows us to put money into projects in the city. Staff was asked to present a flat budget in the requests, and those departments did that, except for contractual increases. And those are sometimes what we call mandated costs. And they have done very well at doing that and coming back with reasonable requests. And just so you know, as we go into this, I looked at, after the deputy managers met throughout the month of July with departments, I met with departments at the end of July and the first part of August, and looked at what their highest priorities are. So what you see in front of you as the departments come in to present are really the highest priorities that they have. I think, generally, I've heard that the departments are pleased with what the recommendations are, and I hope that you find the same throughout the process. So with that, I'll kick it over to Mr. Tinklenberg.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. So in kind of summary form, the requested operating budget is $47,255,610. Now, caveat on that, all of these numbers are still changing, and so by the time we get to September 12th, that'll be a different number. The reason I say that is we're still waiting on insurance premiums to come in. We're doing another round of allocations for the internal service funds. So as those numbers are fine-tuned, our total number changes. Also, the City Council has yet to discuss the legislative budget, so that will happen on the 29th, and then be wrapped up on the 12th. There are 472,000 of enhancements and special consideration items that are proposed. Again, another caveat, not all of that is in the general fund. For simplicity purposes, I've been just counting it all as if it's general fund, so you get a picture of the overall amount. But again, some of that belong in the internal service funds. New positions that were requested and are now proposed total 149,000. The excuse me, transfer to Housing Authority is recommended at 60,000. Elected officials retirement fund 34,400. Debt service 3,200,000, and a CIP transfer of 132,000. So the total budget recommendation then would be 51,307,000. Again, just a quick summary. Compare that operating budget of 47.8 million to, of revenues of 47.8 million to the total expenditures of 51.3 million. That shows a balance of 3,400,000 that we need to cover in some other way, and we are proposing to use fund balances to do that, which would leave a gap of 0 at that point. So here's a little more detail showing where the proposed funding would come from in terms of fund balances. Again, recap of the numbers I quoted to you earlier, but we're looking at pulling $1,079,000 from the general fund balance, and also there's one-time dollars of $210,000 for some of the one-time enhancement requests, and then pulling $2 million from retained earnings in 2 internal service funds, IT and fleet. The Parks and Recreation Equipment Reserve Fund has $77,600 available for some equipment that needs to be replaced in Parks and Recreation, and then transferring $84,500 from the Community Justice Fund balance, which is actually restricted within the general fund balance. So don't mean to make that confusing, but that's where it lives. So again, doing that would end up in a balanced budget. Just in terms of, excuse me, what budget enhancements mean, those are items that are requests that would make a permanent change in the ongoing operating budget. So it'd be an increase in the ongoing operating budget. Special consideration items are requests that are one-time, non-recurring increases. So a special consideration item might be a purchase of a vehicle, for example, that would be added to the fleet. Now, it has a residual effect on the operating budget, but the expense itself is a special consideration because it's a one-time, non-recurring item. Vehicle requests, what is proposed is to replace 1.2 million of existing vehicles. These are primarily vehicles that were deferred in previous years. So again, we've slowed down in terms of equipment replacement, and that money would come out of the retained earnings within the fleet retained earnings fund balance. 2 additional vehicles were requested, and those are for street maintenance, and that is due to the change in the maintenance agreement with Adams County. And we discussed that briefly last meeting. New positions, there was a request for, the request that's been proposed to you is for an engineering intern in Public Works, 2 street operations technicians in Public Works, and a part-time administrative specialist in Public Safety, total of $149,000. So here are the list of all of the equipment, new positions, vehicles, special considerations, items, that type of thing. The 2 vehicles are foreman trucks, which free up other vehicles for the maintenance workers to use. So it's $60,000 for those 2 vehicles. And a toxilizer replacement in public safety, $10,000. And then the positions, as I mentioned, an engineering intern at $9,600, 2 street operations technicians, $110,000, and administrative specialist, part-time, $28,800. Paint striper in Public Works. Then we have budget enhancements, department publications, $36,400 for communications, graphic design, $12,000 for communications, and city lights, $5,000 for communications. Finance, there's a request for one BlackBerry for the software application analyst, $1,200. Parks and Recreation, Buffalo Run facility repairs, $7,100. And then in public safety, a number of items, AFIS machine, almost $30,000. Bike patrol unit, $25,000. CALIA accreditation, $13,000. And some phone equipment service, $11,000. Supplies for victim advocate, $500. And this is basically operational maintenance on warning towers, $15,000. Also in public safety, court-appointed attorney, that would be funded out of the Community Justice Fund, $5,000. Regulatory signs in Public Works, $10,000. Civic Center building security, which would be used to be in IT, being moved over to Public Works, $51,500. And maintenance agreement amendment, $36,000. Railroad facility damage, $5,000, and Victory Crossing mitigation for erosion control, basically, $3,500. Street division blackberries, $4,430, and in economic development, software subscription for CoStar, $4,200. Then in community development, this is basically for the Planning Commission and basically funding for attending conferences to maintain their ongoing education, $3,000. Planning operating supplies, $350. Public safety, mobile data terminal replacement, $65,000. So a total of that at $344,000. In facility renovations for Public Works, requested a recreation center hot water system replacement, $14,000. And in Parks and Recreation requested some renovation in the office space, $35,270, for a total of $49,270 in facilities for facility renovations. IT request, street division, BlackBerry, 5 of them for $375, and golf laptop for food and beverage manager, $2,740, total of $31,15 for that. So grand total of all of those items, $621,949. But then we're proposing to take $84,519 from community justice, the restricted fund balance there, and $210,485 from one-time dollars in the general fund. So the net recurring monies in the general fund would be $326,945. Now, looking at those special consideration items and equipment requests and that type of thing, we would like to have approval for having those items appropriated, but then review them in the first quarter and determine that the economy is still chugging along, albeit slowly. At least it's chugging along, and therefore we can go ahead and expend for those items. So the executive management will review and authorize each of those to proceed when appropriate. We've done that in 2011 as well, and that seemed to work well. Then turning to the departmental budgets and variances, what I'm going to show you is basically a division breakout for each division within each department. And later when the departments present, their presentations will be more high level in terms of looking at sort of their overall program and how they are basically fulfilling council's goals. So what I'll be showing you shows the 2011 amended budget, 2012 requests, and then what has been proposed with enhancements included for 2012. And then the variances are broken out among those 4 major categories that we have in the budget: personnel, materials and supplies, services and charges, and then capital outlay. So legislative, first of all, this is prior to any council discussion, so this is just a very preliminary number. What was originally requested was $553,000, and now what's proposed is $502,000. And the main variance is adjusting the outside services to be aligned with the actual costs. But again, all of this is subject to council's discussion and direction. And as I mentioned, that'll be handed out, and you'll have an opportunity to discuss on the 29th, and then final decisions on September 12th. Turning to legal, the department total there for 2011 as amended is $734,000. What was requested was $683,000, and what's proposed now is $688,000. Major variances, $46,000 reduction due to adjustment in the city attorney's hours. City manager's office, you have 5 divisions there: city manager, city clerk, communications, economic development, and resource development. The only one of those presenting tonight will be the city manager's office and city clerk. Total there was $2.8 million. What was requested was $2.6 million. Now, what is proposed, again, is $2.8 million. Some of the major variances: research development, there's a $9,000 reduction in allocations. City clerk, $17,000 reduction for elections. That's because we only have to budget for that every other year. Communications, again, because personnel was shifted, an increase of $20,000 in salary and benefits. And then services and charges, $102,000, and that's to bring up to the actual costs that have been incurred. City manager's office, reduction of almost $63,000, reducing to actual costs. Economic development, reduction of $20,000 in allocations, and an increase of $11,000 for subscriptions, but those are just being transferred from IT to economic development. It's not an actual increase in the budget. So the net total for the entire city manager's office is just under $25,000 increase. Finance department, here are the 5 divisions in finance. There was a question last week. Internal services is the big one, and that includes all of the insurance premiums and the lease payment on this building, as well as some other citywide expenses like photocopier leases and photocopier maintenance, paper costs, that type of thing. Grand total, $10,880 in 2011. What was requested was $11,482,000. What is proposed is $11,620,000. Again, this number will change because of insurance premiums, and we're hoping it will go down. We've tried to budget very conservatively, kind of worst case scenario. One of the increases is in internal services funds, where in the internal services division, where we put $125,000, and that's, we noted it as Flat Rock. That's the potential cost of the training facility if police department joins with Adams County and multi-jurisdictional training facility. If that doesn't happen, there's also a possibility of having to pay additional for housing prisoners at the jail. These would be municipally sentenced prisoners, and so that $125,000 is sort of a contingency item for that. There's also $300,000 increase for citywide benefits, and again, we hope that number goes down, but the way insurance costs have been rising in last 10 years, that may not go down, but we'll see. Municipal court, there's a new allocation for the court software. That's $10,000. There's no variances in financial services or financial planning and budgeting. There's no major variances, I should clarify. In the tax division, there was $10,000 increase for salary and benefits, and that was to increase the hours of a part-time auditor. So a total of $445,000 for the department. Human resources, total of $879,000 in 2011. What was requested was $902,000. What is proposed is $858,000. There is variance in human resources where there was a reduction of $15,000 to realign it to actual costs. And then in risk management, there was a reduction of $9,000 due to actual costs with the position that was filled for the risk manager position. So the net total for the department is a reduction of $24,000. Community development, the departmental total was, for the 5 divisions, was $3.2 million in 2011, and what it was requested was $3.2 million, almost $3.3. What is proposed is $3,261,118. No major variances in housing or administration. In planning, there's a $3,000 increase for board and commission training, $13,000 increase in building safety for allocations, and in neighborhood services, a $10,000 increase for allocations, for a total of $26,000 increase. Police Department, for the 6 divisions, grand total was $13.4 million in 2011. What was requested was $13.7 million, and what is being proposed is $13.6 million. There's quite a number of variances in administration, $30,000 increase for range fee and ammunition, and that was a transfer from all the police department divisions. There was a $50,000 increase for cell phone, and again, that was transferred from all PD divisions, so it's all being consolidated in administration. Same thing for training, that would be $36,000. There's a $50,000 decrease for the ADCOM fee, that's Adams County Communications, cooperative venture for a number of jurisdictions, including Adams County and the city. And then we transferred that $125,000 for Flat Rock over to internal service in finance. Support operations, increase of $440,000 for salary and benefits, and that was, again, transferred from other divisions. $23,000 decrease for cell phone training, that was transferred to administration, and then $3,500 decrease for range fee and ammo, again, transferred to admin. In patrol, a $270,000 decrease in salary and benefits because it was transferred over to other divisions. $22,000 increase in allocations and a $56,000 decrease for cell phone and training. Community justice, $13,000 for CALIA accreditation, $2,000 decrease for cell phone and training, $25,000 increase for bike patrol, $13,000 increase for phone equipment, and a $64,000 reduction in capital outlay because we had a one-time purchase in 2011 for court software. Special Investigations Unit, $4,000 decrease for cell phone and training, and a $1,700 decrease in range fee and ammo. Emergency Management, there's the $15,000 for the warning tower maintenance I mentioned earlier, and a $9,000 decrease for cell phone. So the grand total of all of that shifting money around is an increase of $4,574. And I bet you would wish that I had just cut right to that at the beginning. Public Works, 4 divisions. That was $6,788,000 in 2011. What was requested was $7,113,000, and what is proposed is $7,956,000. The major change there is, well, several major changes. There's $100,000 for salary and benefits for street operation techs, $157,000 for allocations for vehicles, and $54,000 for outside services for the Adams County maintenance agreement. That's all in street and traffic maintenance. In snow and ice control, $20,000 for salary and benefits. That's basically realigning the percentage from street. Engineering, $94,000, and that's for utilities, and that's, again, aligning it to actual costs. Street cleaning, $28,000 for salary and benefits, again, realigning the percentage allocation there. $47,000 allocation for vehicles. And then the big kahuna here is refuse collection, $74,000 increase due to number of units and the cost per unit, and $602,000 preliminary cost to bill and process payments. That's based on the bid quote that we received from our current contract provider, Waste Management. So a grand total there of $1,178,000. Parks and Recreation, the 2011 budget, grand total 6.2, almost 6.3 million. What was requested was 6.363, and then what's proposed is 6,320,000. No major variances in events. In administration, 10,000 increase in allocations for vehicles, $7,000 decrease in equipment. And that's based on the equipment schedule. No variances in recreation programs, no major variances. And then parks maintenance, 36,000 for seasonal employees, and again, that's realigning it to actual costs. 18,000 for allocations for vehicles, and then a decrease of 28,000 for utilities, for water. So grand total there, 29,420 variance. So looking at all of those totaled up, general fund grand total for the 2011 amended budget for the operation side in general fund is $45,626,000. What was requested was $46,797,000, and what is actually proposed is $47,690,000. Then you have the Housing Authority transfer, the elected officials' retirement, transfer to capital improvement programs, and debt service. And recall that in debt service in 2011, we defeased the 2002 bonds. So that's why we've had a decrease in our debt service. So grand total for 2011, $52.6 million, and what is now proposed is $51.1 million. We're still coping with unfunded mandates. That hasn't changed from last year. All of those, plus more, affect the city every year. Then turning to non-city agency grant history, this shows up in the legislative budget, and so this will be an item again for your discussion on the 29th and on the 12th. Year-to-date in 2011, what was budgeted is $135,800. The grants is, you actually increased it from $100,000 to $120,000 for 2011. And then golf tournaments, what has been spent so far is $4,911, and nonprofit fundraisers, $5,600. And so what has been spent to date is $130,511. So comparing 2012 to 2011, the amended operating budget, $45.6 million. What's proposed is $47.2 million. Now, operating and maintenance costs have risen due to general inflation. Fuel and utility costs have increased, and then there have been some increase by agencies. I still included ADCOM, but we were able to reduce ADCOM, so I apologize. I need to pull that out of there. Health insurance premiums, there have been significant increases. We will see the recommendations, the official numbers, by mid-September. So here again is that summary that I showed you earlier, ending up in a net budget, balanced budget, and showing how we propose to cover the difference between income and the expenditures for total balanced budget. Now, looking at our 2011 year-to-date, we've had excellent tax remittance revenues. The revenues are exceeding the expenditures so far this year, so hopefully that will continue through to the end of the year. We've been able to restrain expenditures, and that's been citywide, very cooperative venture between the departments and executive management. So executive management and finance will continue to monitor that situation. Compensation, there's always a question about what is included. We've included a pool for wage increases, but final decision in terms of the actual decisions have not been made. Of course, we have the FOP contract, which spells out what needs to happen there, and now we have the ASME contract that's been ratified, which spells out what needs to happen there. The CIP proposals, we touched on that briefly last week, and those will be discussed again on August 29. What we're recommending is that we use the restricted revenues, primarily pass-through revenues, but what I'm calling restricted revenues are the Adams County Transportation Tax, which is about $600,000, Solid waste tipping fee, $625,000. Adams County open space, $240,000. Lottery, $350,000. Highway user tax, $1.5 million. Motor vehicle registration fees, $165,000. Cigarette tax, $100,000. In addition, there's also a proposal to use a small amount of impact fee funds. So basically, this tally right here is $3.58 million that's available in dedicated revenues for capital improvement program or projects. In terms of what's next, like I mentioned earlier, the numbers will continue to be refined before we actually get to the official proposed budget. We will see some departmental presentations tonight, and those are the police department, the city clerk's office, the city attorney's office, and city manager's division. Then on August 22, there will be additional department presentations. Those will be Parks and Recreation and Golf, Public Works, Human Resources, Economic Development, and Communications. Then on the 29th, we will have the remaining department presentations. We'll have the legislative budget initial discussion. We'll have CIP projects. Public Works will make a presentation on the refuse collection. And then we would like to obtain council direction in terms of what you want us to cover on September 12th. September 12th, that's the retreat, lasting from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till potentially 9 o'clock at night. Then October 10 is when we actually submit the proposed budget to council, and then you would have your first public hearing, opening of the public hearing on October 17. And as we have done in the entire 10 years I've been with the city, City Council continues the public hearing on that evening, and then on the following meeting, October 24, again, you take public comment and then close the hearing, and then you act on the budget and act on the certifying the mill levy. And I should point out that would, on both of those nights, it'll be both City Council and the GID board, both in official meetings.
So to wrap up, we will continue to refine the budget numbers and bring them back to you. Tonight you'll see several departments. One thing I wanted to make note of is we talk about the fund balances, and it's probably one of my favorite topics because it's easy to understand, but it's also a little complicated on what it really is. And those fund balances are dedicated, earmarked revenues that we put towards, fleet, towards technology, towards facilities, and specifically in most jurisdictions, they don't have the ability to do that. So in that regard, we're healthy when it comes to how we budget those revenues. Those revenues that are allocated for those categories are separate and above the 23% in reserve that we have. So the 23% in reserve is actually a separate number, and they're not part of the fund balances that we're talking about. And I think it bears noting that those reserves have grown to 23%, and yet we still have those fund balances that we are able to tap into as part of our budget process. And then typically at the end of the year, we've found that we didn't have to tap into it because of the internal budget process that we have. So it's kind of a win-win. And as you've seen, we've monitored this as we go along. So as Mr. Tinklenberg mentioned, when we go into the first quarter of the new year, we are looking at what the economy is looking like. We're looking at those things that we've blessed for the next budget year, but also looking at how they're going to be implemented with those departments. So typically by the end of the first quarter, positions and other types of equipment are put into place so that there's a healthy monitoring. And then typically also, as we just did recently, there's a reappropriation ordinance So when we get to the end of the budget year, there's usually an amount that is not spent by the departments, and that amount comes to you usually in the second quarter, and there are other projects that are part of the process that departments may request. So again, that's another, I think, insurance policy that we continue to implement the programs that the council has asked us to do. So with that, I want to ask if there's any questions before we go to specific departments and have their presentation.
Okay. Mr. Bullock?
Yes, Roger. I had a couple questions, and one of them is on page 15 of your presentation. I hope it's okay. Maybe it wasn't page 15. No, it is. It is. The Civic Center building security, $51,500. What exactly is that?
That is a cost that we've incurred each year, and what happened is it transferred over to facility services. It's a combination of cost for actually maintenance of the equipment on the building, which would include like the key card readers at each of the entrance doors. It also includes software maintenance. There's a number of things that go into that. And so this is an agreement with a company that they provide all of those services rather than us trying to do it internally. And it had been budgeted both in police department and information technology. That was consolidated, and what we're doing is moving it into facility services within Public Works.
Okay, and that is a fixed fee of that $51,500?
I believe so. Yes, it is.
Okay. AdCom dropping their fee as much as they did, how did you achieve that?
They actually didn't drop their fee, but the police department has instituted a practice of monitoring of the type of usage that the use that they make of AdCom. And so instead of basically going through AdCom for some of their routine communication, calls, that type of thing, they're using other avenues, and so we've been able to reduce our usage of AdCom, thereby reducing the budget amount that we have to pay them.
Okay. In that reduction, are we increasing it anywhere else, like in public safety with the police department? Does anything, does it write each other off somewhere down the line that we've decreased it in AdCom, but yet it washes out in another department and we're still paying it?
Well, looking on slide 25, you can see that even though we had that reduction in the AdCom fee, the net change in the department in terms of major variances is an increase of $4,574. If you look at the operating budget from 2011 to 2012, the change there is just under $200,000 increase in terms of total budget. So in a sense, yeah, it's washed out by other increases that we have to cover.
Okay. The range fee and ammo it's reduced by $3,500. I guess that's something I would have to just go right directly to the department, or do you know that right off the top of your head?
Again, looking at the bottom of the sheet, you can see they've consolidated it all in administration. So there's a $30,000 increase for range and ammo, and it's decreased in the other divisions because it's all been moved to administration. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Kind of yes and kind of no, because I see where it's decreased, but then I see a $30,000 increase, so I guess that decrease was only in those two departments, and they were normally paying about $22,000 in public PS administration anyway for a range and ammo fee, and when it came out of those other two departments, it just went into there and offset. that 35 and 1700?
It was in 3 divisions, Special Investigations Unit on the right side, and then on the left side, there was some in patrol and also some in support operations. And so it was moved out of those 3 divisions and all placed in the administration division.
I don't see it in patrol. I see it in Special Investigation and support.
Oh,
But
I'm sorry.
I didn't see
Yep.
it in,
I was thinking that cell phone and training included the ammo. I apologize. It does not.
Okay.
So it's just those other 2. You're right.
now, I noticed that Thornton pulled out of the agreement with Adams County with the range that is being built out north. And it seems like it's at a standstill right now. Are we still negotiating, or are we considering?
We have, Councilman Bullock, we, a couple years ago, agreed to participate, and I can't remember the term, but it's kind of like a super user.
Right.
And as part of our contribution, we would get prime time for using the facility and other types of benefits. Specifically, with some of the changes that are coming from the county in regard to prisoner charges, with that cost being questionable of how we would handle that, the Flat Rock discussion is one that we have some concerns with, and so it's been shifted into administration. But through the budget process, what probably is more accurate to show in the where we shifted it is Flat Rock / prisoners, where we basically, I kind of said, well, let's put them together, and the Flat Rock doesn't look like it's moving very fast. So if we decide to go that route, we have this. We don't know what the prisoner options might be. I think the chief and I and the budget team have talked about some different options for both of those. For the Flat Rock, there may be an option to go to other locations. And then for the prisoner situation, we have other options as well. So basically, we've left it in there, but we are in the process of drafting a letter to the county indicating that we may want to reconsider our participation in Flat Rock as well.
In speaking with the district attorney last week, I was told that there's going to be a slight change in how we pay for prisoner housing, or coming from our court. If you, basically, what I think I understood, trying people in our court here is going to increase the cost of sending them there.
Well, basically, what we've been put on notice, with very short notice, I might add, that we have been noticed, as well as every other city in Adams County, that individuals are being sentenced to the jail on minor infractions. Spitting on the sidewalk has been used quite a bit. And that's not factual. It's not the case. But what the Sheriff's Department has done is averaged the numbers and said, each of you will have a soft cap for your city. And for Commerce City, they said, we have a soft cap of 4 prisoners that can stay there in their pod in the jail. And that would be at no charge. Any prisoner above that number would amount to $88 a day per prisoner. So, and each city has received a different soft cap. And so that's the discussion that we're in at the moment, where there was commitments by the public when the bonds were approved that there would not be a charge for prisoners to be staying at that location. And therefore, the number of prisoners, the sheriff has justified that he wants to reduce that number to these caps, these soft caps, because he doesn't have enough officers to maintain that pod because of the budget cuts he's been receiving from the county commissioners. So it's kind of a complicated, layered circumstance that I think we are the recipients of some of the trickle-down of those decisions. So we are evaluating that as a city of whether or not there are options, and there are some other options on the table, but I'm not quite ready to go there yet because we don't know how real it is or if it's posturing going on at the county level.
You're okay? Ms. Teeter?
Yes, thank you for your share of the presentation. I think it's great we have $23 million in reserves.
23%.
Of 23%.
Of the budget,
Okay,
yes.
23%.
I would love 23
I'm sorry. And
had a Roger's eyes just open.
20% more than what we're required to have. My three questions are on the one-time money, the one-time dollars. How many of the one-time dollars are in the reserves? I mean, you don't need to go back 15 years, let's say the last 2 or 3 years. Could you give that information to me, sir?
The reserves do not include any of the one-time dollars. We have those in fund balance. Now, an amount of the one-time dollars have been allocated already, or committed, I should say, by council for a number of projects.
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about 23% in reserves, that's aside from, separate from the one-time dollars.
That's even better news. Second question. Okay. I think it's a great idea, too, that on the operations, the daily operations, that we do not use the one-time dollars as well. That way we depend on them. Good idea. And keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I just wanted the public to know that I have all the trust in the world in this council and in the staff, and that we do not take advantage of the one-time dollars. We know they're not coming in every year, and that's good that we view it that way and use it in the way we do. Thank you.
Mr. Benson.
Yes, thank you. Roger, could you go back to the slide that had communications on it? $667,000 requested and $799,000 proposed. What would be the difference there? What would cause that difference in, say, $120,000 between the amount requested and the amount proposed?
Okay, yeah, we're in study session. You can go in now.
The majority of that is in those two variances noted under communications at the bottom there. 20,000 change in salary benefits, and then 102,000 for services and charges.
What kind of services and charges?
I would have to defer to city manager or communications director, one of the two.
I may ask Michelle Halstead to come up, but specifically, there are contracted services that we have with a number of vendors. And really, I think the increase in communications that you see is reflective of some of the council priorities to beef up communications and get the word out. So Michelle, in her response to that, is saying these are the things that we need to meet the intent of the council. So maybe Michelle can come up and give some specifics on those.
Sure.
Mayor, members of council, and I'm going to be presenting next week and go into much more detail. In looking at the worksheet, there's about $45,000 of computer allocation. That's in part to the fact that we're now fully staffed, minus one vacancy for the first time in 3 years, so that cost has increased. We also have the publications that we produce, City Lights, City News, which had historically not been meeting the budget, did not have the same dollar amounts for the postage increases and the amounts that we have mailed to. So that budget increased because we weren't covering the costs. And then there's some other publications that the Strategic Communications Audit recommended, such as an annual report, a new type of economic development biannual publication, like a magazine called City Lights, a revamped version. Those are the types of things that you see in the actual increase of that 100,000.
But it's city news is costing us about $10,000 a month. Is that what?
I'd have to double check the numbers to be accurate, but the postage alone is about $2,800 every month.
$2,800 a month.
$2,800 a month. And
But
then
you're going to have a better breakdown next week, you say?
Yes, sir.
On that figure? Okay. All right. So, okay, next, Roger, where is the golf course in here?
I don't have them included here, so we'll present those numbers
There was
to you
a,
next week.
There was an item of $2,740 for a golf laptop.
Yeah, that was in the special consideration enhancement request.
Is that just one laptop?
I would assume laptop and software.
That's a lot of money. I mean, I guess depending on the software, but I don't know what...
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find that. It'd be hardware and, again, software and then other associated equipment that would go with it. I couldn't tell you what all goes with a
But
laptop.
I guess next week we'll probably get a breakdown of that. Is that correct, Mr. City
Correct.
Manager?
Also, I would add that sometimes the budgeted number may be higher than the actual cost, and that's also a result of when you get to the end of the year, there is that carryover. So if there's a budgeted amount of $2,700, it may come in at $2,200, and you have a $500 carryover.
Okay. Could you go to the, well, you referred to a lease payment on the Civic Center. How much is that a month?
It's basically annual payment of about $1.5 million.
Who's that paid to?
To the finance, or to the, Finance Authority.
Okay. Could you go to your human resources slide?
Yes, sir.
Well, under, I know some of these, human resources and organizational development seem to have kind of flip-flopped there. You've got human resources, 2012 requested 753 down to 44,700, and then under organizational development, you've got 2012 requested 55,000.
Yes, sir. I had a little dyslexia going on there.
And then 718,524 proposed. It looks like there's kind of a flip-flop there, but why?
Yes, sir.
What happened there?
As I mentioned, I had dyslexia. I just put it in the wrong line.
What
I switched
lines
those.
should it?
The 718,000 should be the top line for human resources, and the 44,700 should be the second line, organizational development. You'll see that aligns with the 2011 budget
All right.
fairly well.
Well, that explains that. Okay.
My apologies.
That's all right. Well, for the refuse collection, I know we discussed this last time. So the difference is about the $600,000 for preliminary cost to bill and process the payments. Does that mean if we start billing people, it's going to cost $600,000 to do that?
That is the quote we received from the company that provides that service. When they bid back several years ago, we asked them what would be the cost if you had to bill for this service, and that's what they said they would charge us.
Well, that's probably another reason to not bill for refuse collection, but those are all the questions I had.
Ms. Carson?
Thank you for your presentation, Roger, and I wasn't so kind as to write page numbers down as the other group. But on there somewhere, it said mobile data, 67,000.
That's PD.
Yes, Police Department?
No, I don't see it there. It was,
Yeah, you're right. It's for the Police Department. It's in the enhancement request.
can you explain mobile data of 60?
Those are terminals that are, well, once before I used the joke that MDT stands for mobile donut. But anyway, these are terminals that are in the police officer cars. So it's like a laptop that actually is
Okay.
bolted right in each patrol vehicle.
Okay. And then back to that police department, and I do have a page number there, that's page 25.
Page 25?
Uh-huh. I don't understand cell phone / training. And that's the way it's listed everywhere. And I'm assuming cell phones is one bill, training is another bill, because we don't have to.
Mr. Mayor and Council, actually,
Sorry, Chief.
if I could recommend,
Okay, I'll stop then. I guess I also had down here this laptop for food and beverage at almost $3,000. I didn't quite understand that. That was the golf course, I guess?
Yes. And we can get more information for you
Okay.
next week on that.
Okay.
Do you have anything else?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Marino?
Mr. Tieklenburg, under the refuge collection that Councilman Benson mentioned, that is the quote, if that administrative process stays under waste management?
That is correct.
So the city would not be undertaking any kind of billing, that would be through waste management?
If we went with that scenario, yes. We're evaluating different options, including, should we do the billing in-house? So there's a whole range of possibilities yet, and so we took this number thinking that's the worst-case scenario and hoping that we can obtain that service or provide that service at a lower cost.
I appreciate that, and I hope that is the worst-case scenario, because that's a lot of money to pay for billing. Thank you.
Okay. That was my concern also. I mean, that's a quarter of what we're spending to pick up trash, so that's going to probably need, being the three of us picked up on the same item, that might be something we want to look at and get in a little deeper on. So, Mr. Benson?
Yes, Mr. Tinklenberg, if in some way we do start collecting for trash pickup, I will do the billing for $500,000.
Duly noted.
So keep me in mind, okay?
maybe we should get into an auction on that basis.
Okay, let's get back on track. We are back to you,
Great.
sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. What I'd like to do now is ask the different departments to come forward, and I want to start with, Chief. I want to start with the CMO's office and Tom. And then we'll do the chief.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Aker.
Just turned it off. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. This is going to be quite a bit briefer. The city manager's office, and I'm in control, so I guess I better move it. Just a refresher, but also for the benefit of the public. Under the city managers, the administration and city council support economic development, the city attorney, communications, and intergovernmental relations and resource development, which also includes the sustainability coordinator and grants administrator. The police department is also under the city manager, but not within the city manager's office. And then if we've got 2 deputy city managers. I'm the one responsible for internal departments, and that includes city clerk, human resources, information technology, and the finance department. And Brian McBroom is the deputy city manager over external departments. That's public works, parks and recreation, and golf, and community development. Overall, as Mr. Tinklenberg referenced in his presentation, the city manager's office has approximately about $63,000 in reduction, and that reflects actual costs. There are some line items, as you'll see in September 12th presentation in the budget books, that have gone up. Some items have gone down. We've been trying to track closely what some of our actual costs are. We've added a couple of conferences and some meetings and some memberships as we've changed staff, but overall we're trying to keep that budget fairly lean. We didn't have any enhancement requests through the city manager's office. The city clerk, city attorney, communication, and economic development are budgeted individually. They will do presentations as well. And the city manager office in general supports all of the council goals and priorities, and also helps support departments to achieve those council goals and priorities. So unlike some of the other departments, we won't have a laundry list of exactly which ones match what, but in general, all that we do supports your goals and priorities. So with that, I can answer any questions. A lot of this detail will be provided to you on September 12th.
Thank you, Mr. Aker. I'm not seeing anybody's name light up. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Now we can go to the Chief of Police, Mr. Phil Baca.
Good evening, Chief. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Pleasure to be here this evening. Try to answer all of your questions, whether they're about cell phones or training, and try to clarify anything you may have. So I appreciate the time. I think I have about 30 minutes, but I've been watching the clock and the schedule, so I think I really have about 6.5 minutes to finish up. Right? Okay.
We appreciate it.
Nevertheless, what we're going to do here is I'm going to take you through a very quick review of the entire police department, staffing levels, and how it really looks organizationally. I'd like to go over the enhancements. Secondly, all those requests that we were asking for and where that money is coming from, and then how it applies to your council priorities. You've really, I think, if I have my number correct, you have 16 council priorities, and I've aligned 11 of those priorities with those enhancements that we were asking for in the division. In the 9-page PowerPoint that I prepared for you, you can refer to those. I've outlined my enhancements numerically and put them under the appropriate priority that I thought was the best fit. I'm not going to go over those individually, detail by detail, so I'll speak generally with some detail, but you can feel free to ask any questions that you may have when I finish up, and I'll certainly try to keep this under 30 minutes, Manager. We have 120 and a half employees in the police department. It really looks like this. Counting me, I have 3 division commanders. You know who they are: Commander Wu, Commander Baker, and Commander Sibley. We have 3 lieutenants. Lieutenant Moon, Lieutenant Cubbage, and Lieutenant Sonier. Emergency Manager Alan Colon. 13 sergeants, 73 and a half officers, 26 civilians. That half officer is our red light camera expert. That is Linissa Blivens. She handles all of those things, and I may say she handles them very appropriately. We couldn't have a more dedicated and interested person handling those. So that's the size of our agency, and I realize that with 120 and a half people and the things that we do, we have the largest budget in the city. A little over $13 million. 7.5 of that go to patrol operations. The remainder go primarily to support, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. We don't take this lightly. We know it is expensive to run a police department. We, as a staff, including all of my supervisors, that includes sergeants, our first-line supervisors, have discussed our budget thoroughly in terms of what is reasonable, what we can do to service the public, the type of protection and coverage that they deserve, because the money we get is earned by very hard-working people in this city. And we obviously have tried to keep our request to a reasonable limit and things that will pay off for the community. We're not trying to ask for things that are nice to have, but things that I think will make a true difference for the department and the citizens of this community. Our administration division is divided into 3 areas. Professional standards, they handle our internal affairs complaints, discovery issues, unfortunately when we get sued, right Bob, right Karen? So we have to get a lot of material for those things. They handle our recruiting and training. When we hire people, we have a formal testing process, interviews, assessments, and then we have a training process that everybody goes through. Accreditation, we have state accreditation. We are seeking national accreditation, and I will get into those details momentarily. Patrol operations, obviously we have traffic division. It's a very high-profile, well-trained expert unit with drug recognition experts, DUI experts, traffic investigation experts, 2 canines, 2 animal control officers, 2 community service officers, and our special investigations unit. Animal control officers are exactly what they mean. They handle all our animal issues. Our community service officers handle other community issues and are 2 great support staff for the patrol division. One of the most important things they do is they take cold reports on behalf of patrol officers so that patrol officers may maintain their duty time on the street and respond to other calls that may be in progress. So as an example, if we get a cold report on a theft, and a cold report means it's already occurred, it's not in progress, there are no suspects, there is no evidence, there's no real reason to send a police officer out there, and our community service officers will take the actual report. Invariably, it could result in an investigation, and that investigation may go back to a police officer or even a detective if it's a felony crime, a serious crime. Our Special Investigations Unit is the old SCAT unit. We changed the name. Their functionality has changed a little bit, but I can tell you that the sergeant and the 4 officers we have assigned to this make an incredible impact on serious crime. If there is anything happening in terms of burglaries, robberies, street robberies, a homicide that we may have, we set these guys loose. They work all hours of the day. They can work plain clothes, in uniform. They're very flexible, and it's an incredible asset to have them on the department. They have arrested a lot of people and solved a lot of crime because of their dedication. Our Support Operations Unit includes our detectives, the task forces that we serve on. In 2011 and 12, we staffed 2 additional task forces. First one is Metro Gang Task Force. We now participate in that task force. This is a force multiplier for the city and the police department. We have 1 detective assigned there. All of that detective's overtime is paid by the task force. So the city doesn't have to pay for that. That comes back to us into the general fund as a reimbursement. It's a force multiplier on our behalf because we have an entire task force of people who are assigned from around the city to come into our city to investigate very complex crimes, specifically crime organizations, drugs and gangs. So we get a lot out of it. North Metro Drug Task Force, we have 2 detectives assigned to that. Again, it's very similar. We participate with a number of other Adams County municipalities, and they will investigate cases within Commerce City. We get a lot of staff work, investigative work out of that task force. One of our newest task forces is the East Metro Auto Theft Team. This is very beneficial for the citizens of this community and our department because all of the salary, all of the benefits, the vehicle, and all of the overtime is reimbursed through this grant. It's from the Colorado Association of Auto Theft organization, and they selected Commerce City. We were the very first to be granted the award for no cost. So we have a detective there. We pay nothing. We get more than $100,000 each year reimbursed to us. And again, we get assistance from our other partners. Aurora Police Department, Douglas County Sheriff's Office, Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office, Colorado State Patrol, and us. We all participate as a team. An incredible unit. We have 4 school resource officers, 2 new crime prevention officers, our 2 crime scene technicians, 2 victim advocates, 2 individuals in property and evidence, our record staff, and our volunteer group of young explorers. Office of Emergency Management, responsible for regional operational planning. Alan does an incredible job. He is well respected in this community and the community of emergency managers. Oftentimes, we have questions. What's Alan doing? All right, I can tell you he is very, very busy, and he is busy at the local level and national level. We have put together one of the best emergency management teams in the metropolitan area. It's actually a model for other agencies, and they're looking at how we put that together. And we put it together with people from within our own organization. Doesn't cost us anything else. Sworn people, non-sworn people, and it's an incredible team, and they are trained and managed to respond to any type of a natural or man-made disaster. We can be very proud of those folks. Here are the enhancements that we are asking for, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit. Number one is the Intoxilyzer 5000, $10,000, a lot of money. Unfortunately, this is a state mandate. This is not something that we have a choice on. It's not like I woke up one day and said, you know what, let's go spend $10,000 on a new machine. I really don't like the way that looks. This mandate came from the Colorado's Department of Health. It is a statewide, every county, every municipality, the state patrol has to replace all of their machines. And it has to all be done at one time because this is used for our intoxicated drivers. The Department of Health has to have a similar testing process. The machines all have to be exactly the same. Everybody has to be trained the same. And so therefore, every agency is tasked to spend some money on a machine. Now, there are grant funds available for a number of agencies, but those agencies are typically in the rural areas. They probably don't have any money to budget for such equipment. Fortunately, we do. We may end up getting grant funding. We're not assured of that, but we must replace it sometime in 2012. We don't have a choice. The only other alternative would be for us to go to the Sheriff's Department or for us to go to the Colorado State Patrol Office and do that. Two problems associated with that. It's going to take one or two officers off the street, can't handle calls, got to drive to Brighton, go up there, do the test, come back. It's very, it's just not cost effective. It's, when you're starting to pay for personnel time as opposed to a piece of equipment, then we're not paying attention to what we should be paying attention to in terms of expenditures. It's cheaper always to buy your equipment, but that's why we've asked for it. Our administrative specialist, this is part of our ongoing community policing efforts. I stood before this council almost 4 years ago. 4 of present council folks weren't present at the time. But I laid out an entire map of where this agency needed to go strategically in the next 10 years. We've continued to follow that map. We completely reorganized the department. We have done a number of things. Crime prevention officers, that new unit, task forces. We filled 19 patrol positions, and it's allowed us to do a lot of stuff. And I think you will see that our crime rates have continued to go down each year, not in increments, not small increments, but nice percentages. We are continuing to keep serious crime down. Even the misdemeanor crime is down. I can remember one of the questions that was posed to me by the city manager and the deputy city managers at the time when they were going to hire me. And the question was, how should we evaluate you? And I said, evaluate me on 2 things. And if I'm not getting the job done, you can fire me. One, is crime going down? If crime is going down, then we're doing the right thing, and leadership management is headed in the right direction. If our internal affairs complaints by citizens are going down, then we're doing the right thing. And I can stand here proudly and tell you those numbers have dropped significantly in the last 4 years. The administrative specialist will be, I've asked for that position at the North Range substation. One of our primary goals was to build and staff a station to provide better service for our North Range community. We have that physical location now. We have people permanently assigned up there. We have vehicles permanently assigned up there. Right now, I am sharing my administrative assistant as admin time up there. It's not a big sacrifice, but I have to tell you it is a sacrifice. I've been doing some of my own staff work I've allowed Katie Bursek to go up there 2 days a week to help Lieutenant Cubbage, who's the North Area Range Commander, and she's been incredibly busy. A lot of people walk into that office asking for help, and we're able to help them. It's a necessary component. It's just not, it's not a nice-to-have thing. But it's been recommended that we at least get a 32-hour-a-week part-time position, and I think it's great. The number 3, the AFIS machine. It's automatic fingerprint identification system. Ours is worn out. It's going to break, and when it breaks, it's done. There's no fixing it. We can't have a contract. It's just old. It's about $30,000. There is no lease program for these machines. We can't go out and lease one. We have to buy one. If we don't have an automatic fingerprint machine, we have to roll fingerprints on a card. Those are not acceptable anymore. We can't take that card, send it to Colorado Bureau of Investigation. We can't take it and send it to the FBI. They don't accept them anymore. We fingerprint sex offenders. We fingerprint a lot of teachers that are looking for jobs. And when you do the AFIS machine fingerprint, you take 10 prints all at once. They're perfect. We can electronically send those to the Sheriff's Department, any other place where we book a prisoner, and we can, within a very short period of time, get a positive match on somebody who has a police record, and there's no questions. So it's something really neat to operate. The Bicycle Patrol Unit, again, part of our community policing efforts and endeavors. I think this ties nicely into one of your council priorities in terms of parks and trails. The more trails we have, more parks we have, I think the greater concerns for safety are. We need to have some visibility on those trails, but the Bicycle Patrol will also function quite nicely at the stadium. There's no better way to get around in the parking lots, around crowds, up and down stairs, narrow pathways and causeways, other than a bike. It's silent. Nobody knows you're there. It pays great dividends. We can use them in our high-density apartment complexes. We can use them at our new shopping center at 104th and Chambers. We can use them at the Parkway Shopping Center and all along all the bikeway paths that we have. So I think it's quite important that we have it. $25,000 sounds like a pricey. Sounds like a high price tag, but we have to remember that we're equipping 12 officers, 12 bikes, 12 different uniforms. You can't ride your bike with this uniform. You need other type of equipment. You need to be visible. You need to be dry in wet weather because we intend to use these bikes year-round, and most of the time the weather will permit, and the appropriate training. So that's why it's $25,000. CALEA accreditation. As I mentioned, we are accredited through the state, which is absolutely meaningless. And I can say that because I am an accreditation team leader for CALEA. I go nationwide. I've done and assess other agencies, large agencies. I just got back from Tucson, Arizona, and I led the assessment team down there to make sure that Tucson PD is living up to the standards set by national accreditation. National accreditation is one of the best accountability and management tools you could ever hope to use. You follow the latest practices in hiring, in promoting, in training, in education, in patrol operations, and support. I could go on and on and on. There are 494 standards on how to do the job right. Once you are CALEA accredited, you are held to those standards. We are subject to an inspection and an audit at the end of every third year. They will send a team here to make sure, by observation, by some type of proof, by some type of interview, that we are doing the job we say we are doing. Less than 15% of all law enforcement agencies ever attain a national accreditation. I came from an accredited agency at Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. I know what it means. We have continued to work on our own accreditation here. We have laid the foundation in the last 3.5 years that I've been here to propel ourselves into formal accreditation. I think it's very meaningful, and I think it will help us. I think in the long run, it really provides a lot of, prevents a lot of high-risk liability issues. We train people the right way, hire the right people. We have the proper policy and procedures. You just can't go wrong. Enough said. Phone service and equipment. This is really to keep us in the ball game. We are a little bit behind the curve. We cannot access our information, our laptops, web-based programs with the current phones that we have. We need 4G capability, and we need it for a lot of reasons. If you're in the field, in a disaster, at an emergency operations center, in our command bus, we can't get anything off of our desktop. We need to have that capability. Our detectives need it, our sergeants need it, command staff needs it. OEM warning tower is basically just a maintenance fee line item. We don't have one right now. We've been taking the money out of the CIP program, so we need that. We just spent $14,000. One of our towers was hit by lightning and darn near destroyed the whole thing. All the batteries, all the speakers going to have to be replaced. Victim advocate supply, small amount, but more pamphlets, more printing that we need to do, other mandates by state statute that we have to get to every victim. Municipal court appointed attorney, I don't know why this is on my budget, but anyway, I'll talk about it. This is actually for the judge. There is currently a line item amount of $15,000 for court appointed folks. Anybody who's subject to incarceration has a constitutional right to legal counsel, and that's the purpose of this fund, to provide legal counsel for those individuals in municipal court that may very well be sentenced to incarceration. The judge believes he needs an extra $5,000 in that account. I just told him I'd put it before you. I gave him no guarantees. The mobile data terminals somehow fell off of this list, but it actually should be number 10. The MDTs are the laptops that are in the police cars. Those laptops provide a lot of capability for the officers. It's basically a mandatory piece of equipment today. Without a laptop in the car, you're kind of working in the dark. Dispatch, ADCOM will send you dispatches, what we call silent dispatches. These are calls that are non-priority, non-emergency. Instead of airing them on the radio, they send them electronically. Additionally, officers use those mobile data terminals to do their own clearances for people that may be wanted. What is their status, with motor vehicle? And so they can do a lot of their own work without contacting ADCOM. You asked how we were able to reduce our ADCOM fee by $50,000. Management and accountability, that's what it was. We looked at those costs a year ago and asked ourselves, how can we reduce those costs? Internally, it took some training, some prodding, some pushing, maybe a few threats here and there, not using ADCOM for those things that you don't necessarily have to do. Use your cell phone, use your MDT, use the telephone at your desk. Do it yourself. And so we were able to save $50,000. That's how we got that done. But those MDTs are critical. The problem is with the MDTs, we were on a fixed replacement schedule of every third year. Because of budget considerations and the economy, that was pushed up. Well, we're at the end of the life cycle for a number of those. I think we identified about 18 of those. You can't fix them. They're outdated, they're old, and we need to get those replaced. So subsequently, it's going to take about $65,000 to get back on a 4-year rotation and get those replaced for the officers. Again, it's a critical piece of equipment. It's no less critical, I think, in this day and age of technology than having access to your personal radio as a police officer on the street. Like I said, the last two pages of my presentation here are the council priorities, and I've kind of put in all of those enhancements where I thought they appropriately fit. What I'd like one of the things I like to say is that that blue statement I have up there, how do we achieve urban economic viability? Well, from my perspective as chief of police and the perspective of other officers on the department, public safety is really a precondition for a thriving urban life. Without the cops, without people feeling safe, without our physical presence, people will not want to move here, play here, do their recreation here. Businesses will not want to move here. And we want to make sure that this is a great place to work, a great place to live, and people want to move here. One of the telltale signs of this is every time a new business comes in, I get a call from economic development, and they want to know what the crime stats are. It's very, very important that we're able to do this job. We're as important, to the economy here as any other function within the city. That will conclude my presentation. I know that was fast, but I'm ready for some questions.
Mr. Benson.
Chief, how are you tonight?
I'm great. How are you, sir?
Okay. What's the difference between a breathalyzer and an intoxilizer?
The breathalyzer is a portable unit, and those are the things, the little breathalyzer will be something that we use, and we can use on the street and have you blow into it right there on the street. That's the real difference. The intoxilizer is a full-size machine, probably about the size of that desk, and it must be stationary, and it has to have the proper installation. It has to be isolated from any other machine. Those are the requirements, and that's the big difference between the two. Breathalyzers, we can buy breathalyzers for $500, but they're not. We cannot use those in place of a toxilizer because evidentiary rules. It's not admissible.
So if you had detained somebody on the street and used a breathalyzer and they came out, say, close to one of the legal limits,
yes,
you would take them in, you would use that as grounds to take them in?
It's probable cause.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And the cops have to act on probable cause. You know that, I know that, you know that as a lawyer, but for everybody else, we are obligated by law. If we have probable cause to believe you're involved in some type of criminal activity, we are mandated to make that arrest. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. That is the district attorney's issue. Ours is probable cause.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes, Chief, thank you so much for your presentation. I was here 4 years ago when you laid out, it's been that long?
Almost.
Yeah, when you laid out that presentation to us about what your plans were, what you thought needed to be done, and I just think you've done a really great job.
Thank you.
You've accomplished many, many of those things that you told us that you would do, and you're still doing a really great job, and I just really want to commend you and your department for the great job that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your kind comments, but really, it's the men and women of the department that do all the work. I'm at the top. I push them. I may come up with some ideas, but without City Council, without the City Manager's office, and without the people that work there, we couldn't accomplish anything. So it's a team effort, and there's no way that I would ever try to even take any of the,
Well, I think you do a great job. So
Credit.
even if you won't take it, I'm going to
No.
give it to you anyway.
Thank you very
Please
much.
pass on to your department that I just think they do a great job.
I will.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Teeter?
Yes, again, thank you for your presentation, and it is a team effort. However, they have a good leader.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have a question about the intoxilizer.
Yes.
$10,000. How many machines is this? Is that one, or wouldn't you need more for each
No, that's
vehicle?
one. That's just one
You
machine.
have one, two.
Sure.
So where would it be? Here? You
It
bring it here, it's
yes.
not in the patrol cars then?
No. It's as big as that desk, and it resides downstairs in the holding area where we have the 12 holding cells.
Okay.
That's where our DUI room is, and that's where it must be stored and maintained.
Okay, and I'm sure it's badly needed. You to have to prioritize these is remarkable, and I really think number 10 is extremely important as well.
I do too.
When you can bring forward the background information of a felon or something like that just is crucial. So thank you again for all you and your department do.
I would like to say one thing, that all of these are funded, or I guess the intent is that they be funded out of our community justice funds. Now remember, though, that is a special ordinance that council created a number of years ago. Every defendant that comes in, pleads guilty, or is found guilty is charged a surcharge, and that surcharge funds the Community Justice Fund. And by ordinance, those funds can only be used for community criminal justice purposes.
And this council was part of that decision-making, weren't we?
And that was a great decision.
One of the best choices I've ever made. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Diaz? Well,
I'm
you're
sorry,
not near
sir.
done.
I
sir.
thought I was done.
Not
Not
quite. I have
even
like 20
close.
questions. Just kidding. Thanks for your presentation. I thought that was really clear on terms of enhancements and stuff. One of the few things that I do remember from the June 13th meeting, of the 6-hour meeting, getting thrown into the fire type of thing, is the fact that we might be outgrowing the North Range substation soon. What is the status of that? How close are we to that?
Well, we're probably full. I've got supervisor offices up there. I got a supervisor's office that's full. The commander's office is full. We have our staff up there, an animal control officer, a CSO, and our uniform officers. We're full. I mean, but we'll make do. The status is, I continue to work with the fire department. We still have informal discussions. Whatever the future may hold, we know that we want to partner up with them. I think it's the smartest thing to do. I mean, whether it's engineering, architectural design, purchase of the land, why not cut that in half? We can make that facility a public safety facility. It can be a fire, police. You can even add other city facilities in there. It could be clerk. It can be a multi-use, a municipal facility. We can do a lot of things the smart way, and I think the citizens would be proud of the way we're planning to do that. So we continue to have those informal talks. Hopefully, we will be able to maintain our presence there. If the economy, picks up and grows, I'm afraid they may push us out of there because they'll want a viable business in there. I can see why. But we're going to stay there as long as we can, and I'm confident we'll find some place to go. We're not going away from the North Range. As simple as that. And I tell you that my boss has reassured me that, right? Okay, see?
Great. Thank you. And by the fact that you're still here, I'm guessing the crime rate has gone down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Carson?
Chief, thank you and your department for everything that you all do. We all sleep well at night because of the work you do. The parks and trails bicycles, will those be 24 hours patrolled? Or?
They could be. I mean,
Okay.
there's no reason that in the nice weather with and because they will be they'll have the appropriate lighting. They can certainly use them when they see fit. Now we will draft up our policy and procedures to do that, to make sure it's safe to do so, and to deploy the bikes where you'll get the biggest bang for your buck. And so we have to do that entire analysis. But yeah, they can. I can foresee them, working at night in some areas where it's not too dark.
Well, thank you for being visionary and realizing that we need that out there. The school resource officers, we have 4. Can you tell me which schools they are at?
I knew you were going to ask me that question, and I can answer it. I'm just, okay, because there are 19 schools that we are responsible for. We have not, boss, I didn't mean to do this to you, but, we have 4 officers that core group has not grown in a number of years, but the number of schools has. But we continue to do the best we can. It's expensive, although the school district helps us. They pay all their overtime for school-related activities. That goes back into our general fund. They pay half of the salary, which is probably a very good deal for us because from where I came, Jefferson County, the schools refuse to pay anything. And they still don't. So, I mean, we do benefit in that sense. We don't spend as much time as I would like in every school, but you physically can't. You have 4 officers and you have 19 schools. They rotate. They rotate through all the schools. They spend time in all the schools. Don't get me wrong. Thank you, Mr. Gaylor. I didn't mean to, insinuate that. They spend time in all the schools.
Okay, so we don't have anybody home-based at the high schools.
No.
We need to help you out more there. My belief is community policing and children. Do we want to?
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I
So
share the
anything we can
Adams
do
County Youth
to help
Initiative, and
you?
I'm an advocate for children, believe me.
Yes. So yes, I would love to see it where we can say we have a lot more of them. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Marino?
Just on the item that Councilwoman Carson brought up, I was extremely, I benefited from having, Officer Ortega around when I was in Adams City High School. And he became more than just an officer that was there at the school. He became a teacher. He got involved with the kids, extracurricular activities. So I really value that service, and I think we should have more access to those officers for our kids. So I do agree with you that on Councilwoman Carson. The other thing is I really like the idea of the bike patrol, and maybe we can have your officers, have their input into the bike and pedestrian master plan as well, so they can tell us where the gaps are, too.
Absolutely. I think that's always been our intent. And, we've had good discussions with Carolyn Keith, and, I've got a great relationship with Carolyn and all of our programs that, bleed over. It's a great relationship. Police camp was one. You mentioned Officer Ortega. All of the SROs, except for James C., who was on military leave, participated in that police camp. They're great. They're great folks. They have their own families. They have their own kids, but they realize the needs of our community. And, those are special folks. They love that interaction. They love to be mentors. They love to teach. And they do a lot of this on their own time. Ortega has done this for 35 years. He takes groups of kids to his own property in the mountains to camp and fish. Fidel's a great guy. I'm going to hate to lose him because I know that retirement is on the horizon. But it'll be well deserved for Fidel. Is that it?
It looks like that's it, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Mr. Flannery, back to you.
Ms. Bauer, as city clerk.
Okay. Good evening.
I'm going to try to drive from here. Honorable Mayor and members of City Council, I'd like to just spend a few moments of your time tonight to hit some highlights of the 2012 budget for the City Clerk's Division. The City Clerk's Division is a division underneath the City Manager's office. We have a staff of 3. That would be myself as your City Clerk. Cheryl Scott is our Deputy City Clerk, and we have 1 administrative specialist assigned to the division. Ooh, it worked from here. Yay. We operate on approximately a $250,000 budget. And the functions are divided into 3 areas. First area is our administrative area. And those, the functions that fall within that area include tracking and processing of all city ordinances, resolutions, contracts, and other official documents. We maintain and update the municipal code. We maintain and update the charter. We administer the city's liquor licensing program. And we fulfill public records requirements in consultation with the city attorney's office. And we oversee the city's citywide records storage and destruction program. The next function is the legislative function. And that is consistent with the provisions of the state and local laws. We are responsible for the preparation of your agenda packets, posting and publishing of all public notices, and recording actions taken by you, City Council. The last division structure would fall under elections. These responsibilities include working closely with Adams County for coordinated elections, and we are also responsible for the management and conduct of city elections, special elections, and general improvement elections. Those duties can include identification and assessment of polling places, recruitment and training of election judges, maintenance and testing of voter equipment, development and publishing of ballots. For 2012, our budget is essentially flat. We have no enhancements. We did not request any enhancements. There were slight increases, but those are due to salary and computer allocations. And those are some of the contractual costs that were referenced earlier by City Manager Flannery. Also, in 2011, we have budgeted approximately $17,000 for our portion of the coordinated mail ballot election. Next year, that cost is not considered in our budget. That the election costs come in every other year when it's our municipal election time. Other than that, the money has been removed out of my budget. Another function that I wanted to bring to your attention was a program that we began in 2009, and that was the Passport Acceptance Facility. We serve as a passport acceptance facility for the United States Department of State. That began in 2009, and we are seeing a slight increase in revenue from year to year. This year, we have slowed a little bit, and I think that's due to some other passport acceptance facilities opening up, such as North Glen. When we opened up, we took away some of the City of Westminster's business, and when North Glen opened up, they took some of ours. So the pie is getting spread a little bit thinner every year. But it continues to be a great program that we offer to the community. This is a question that's often asked, so I thought I would put some information for you together real briefly. As you can see, when we work in coordination with the county, our costs for our elections generally go down. And I say generally, 2007, you will notice that we had both a coordinated election and we had our own election. And those costs were a little bit higher, but I think that in 2007 there were some hot controversial issues for the city on the ballot. And that we had a little bit larger turnout than what we typically have. We typically have about a 20% voter turnout. And of course, you'll see a staggering amount in 2008. But that amount was, it was unprecedented. The voter turnout in 2008 was something that we have not seen in this state in a very long time. And we don't anticipate seeing those kind of figures again. So generally for us to budget approximately $17,000 is a pretty safe bet. The functions that the city clerk's office provides does meet some of council's goals and priorities. Those goals and priorities of customer service. We do that with our records management program and providing open records or providing public records to the community that come in and request those documents. We also provide customer service through the elections process. We have started doing candidate informational forums. We have done council orientation. We work with the candidates during the whole nomination process. We help them with their campaign finance forms. Also, these activities promote the quality of life for the community. The Passport program allows our citizens a central location to apply for a passport so that they can travel. And our election program does provide for civic engagement. And that is all I have, but I am certainly open for any questions that you might have.
Mr. Marino?
Thanks, Laura. Are you the smallest of all city departments?
I'm not a department. I am a division, and I think I'm about probably even with the Intergovernmental Relations Division.
Gotcha.
I think we're probably about neck and neck.
I think we get a lot of bang for our buck with your department, so I appreciate what you do. With the passport program, is that a one-stop shop? They can do their photos here as well, or do they have to do their photos elsewhere and then bring in their application?
We are a one-stop shop. The only thing that we cannot help them with is applying for visas. But we also help. We're not obligated to, but we do provide assistance for those folks that are just renewing their passport application. We don't collect a fee for that. We don't collect a what they call a processing fee, but we do take their pictures often, and that's a $10 charge to the customer. But we will help them and put it together for them. We'll provide them with an envelope. We'll provide them with mailing labels. So that's a service that we kind of provide above and beyond what we're required to do.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing no other comments, thank you very much.
Sure.
Mr. Flannery.
Last but certainly not least, our city attorney's office. I think Karen Stevens is presenting.
Good evening.
Good evening. We're going to be very quick. I think we're the smallest department, actually. We are often combined with the city manager's office for purposes of administration, but we are unique to the city in that we're the only department that doesn't report up through the city manager's office. We report up through the city attorney, who then reports to you. And although we're unique here in that we're a unique department within the city, that setup isn't unique. Most cities have that setup. It ensures that your legal advice is independent. So that's our setup. Our roles are basically to provide legal advice. We provide legal advice to you. We provide legal advice to the city staff. We provide legal advice to the boards and commissions as they request it. We draft ordinances, contracts, bonds, all your legal instruments, and we also are responsible, for directing all litigation, which is my next slide. When I got up this morning, we had 4 federal cases pending and 1 state case pending. As I sit here today, this evening, the state case has been dismissed, or will be being dismissed tomorrow morning. So that's good news. Of the 4 federal cases, we have 2 that have already satisfied our deductible. As you all know, CIRSA covers us, and we have a deductible of, right now we have a deductible of about $50,000 per claim. So that impacts our budget. But 2 of those cases, we've already met our deductible. In fact, one of the deductibles, the deductibles count towards the year in which it was filed. So one of them only had a $10,000 deductible, so we've already met that. Everything going forward is covered by CIRSA. The other one was a $25,000 deductible. Again, everything going forward will be covered by CIRSA. The 2 remaining, one was just filed, and so I anticipate that the deductible, most of that deductible will be incurred next year as opposed to this year. We'll have some preliminary pleadings, but the discovery, the depositions, the interrogatories, and those kinds of things that are really costly will occur in 2012. The other one is what we're about halfway through, I think, and we'll incur a little bit more this year, I think. And then we have a hearing before the Department of Revenue, and we have 25 tax cases. Now, the tax cases help us. Unfortunately, they're not part of our budget line as income. Otherwise, we'd be a great department. And that's mostly due to Mr. Gaylor. And he can talk to you probably more about those if you want to know more about those. But those are kind of the cases that are going on right now for us. So our budget analysis is basically we're staying flat. Our expected expenses for outside services remains the same. You'll see a small percentage change or decline in our overall because of salaries, because of the decrease in the salaries and benefits due to Bob reducing his work hours. Which is a drag for me, but it's good for him, I think. So that's it for us. If you have questions, I'm happy to take them.
Comments from council? Yes. Mr. Bullock?
Are you at liberty to discuss the state case that's being dropped?
Yeah, that was a case that was filed by Ms. McIntyre. She tripped on a sidewalk in the city and incurred some injuries. But the city is covered by what's called governmental immunity. I'm sure you're all aware of it.
Yes.
And so there are certain exceptions to governmental immunity, and one of them is a dangerous condition on a sidewalk. And so that is what she was claiming. It was set to go to hearing tomorrow on the governmental immunity issue. And if we prevailed in that hearing, the court would have had to order her to pay our attorney's fees. And so we sent, they asked for a settlement a couple weeks ago, and we declined that settlement, but we said what we would be willing to do is file for a stipulation for dismissal where both parties would pay their attorney's fees and there would be no other payments, and that's what they decided they'd like to do.
Okay. This case cannot be refiled, correct?
The stipulation will be that it will be dismissed with prejudice. It will not be able to be refiled.
Thank you.
Mr. Marino?
In jest, I was going to ask your legal advice on how not to get sued, but then realized I might be putting you out of business, so withdraw my question. But thank you for representing us well on legal matters.
Thanks.
I kind of have an administrative question. I know that you've said you've cut your hours back, Mr. Gaylor, but is that in fact happening?
That's somewhat of a loaded question, but the discrete answer is it's working out in my office, but I have not cut my office hours back to anything below 40 hours a week.
Mr. Flannery, that may need to be something we look at again if...
We don't need to go there, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
It's working out, and let's just, I'm working on that. I'm getting Karen more involved and Graham more involved, and we're making progress, let's put it that way. So I'm working through that. As we speak, though, tonight, I haven't cut it back to the extent that was planned to be cut back.
He got a BlackBerry, and he can't leave it alone.
We're going to start pulling batteries out of those as people go on vacation.
But the good news is, from my perspective, is that I am making progress. Karen and Greg, a big help. Jackie, also in my office, is a big help, and we're working through the process.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Flannery, I know that he doesn't, Mr. Gaylor, I don't mean to say he, Mr. Gaylor doesn't in fact report to you, he reports to us, but I would appreciate it if you would help us monitor that. I don't know that we can do anything about it, but I want to make sure we're giving each of our employees, no matter which employee it is, the benefit of what they're doing.
Mr. Gaylor will tell you, when he initially proposed this, I told him, fat chance.
Yeah.
And I mean, and when you plan 4/8s, it always turns into 5/10s.
Yep.
So I mean, it's one of those challenges, and I've scolded him once or twice to get going out of here. But one of the things I wanted to mention, Mr. Mayor, and probably 3 years ago, some of the bills in the city attorney's office were significantly high, if you recall. And what we said was we would look at a structure, maybe similar to the city manager's office, where there was an internal and external, but you had two attorneys, two assistant attorneys that would be looking at specific data in certain cases. And what they've done is they've split that up. And if you look at their overall budget and the costs, it has actually reduced the amount of expenditures in that area. So I think the plan is working, and I think what we have in the attorney's office are very high-level attorneys that I think are trusted by all the staff, and I know the council trusts them as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Flannery, back to you.
I believe that's it. Did you have anything else?
I do not, sir. Thank you.
Let there be light. Thank you. Another good amount of information for us to go through.
Just next week, we're having the Parks and Rec and golf. We'll pay attention to the specific questions that were asked tonight, and we'll make sure we have answers for those.
Okay.
We have Human Resources, Public Works, and Communications.
Okay. Thank you very much. Only for Mr. Bullock, because he wasn't here when this happened. The next item that's on the agenda has been moved to when Mr. McEldowney is returned. So the next item on the agenda is a motion to call the special meeting for August 29th. It's become necessary for us to conduct a special meeting on August 29th, 2011. But in order to do so, we must vote to call a special meeting to begin at 6:30 on the 29th of August. I'll now entertain that motion. Mr. Marino?
Move to call a special meeting on August 29th, 2011, starting at 6:30 p.m.
Ms. Teeter?
Second the motion?
I have a motion and a second to hold a special meeting on August 29th, 2011, to begin at 6:30. Requesting a voice vote, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. Mr. Flannery, you'll deal with whatever we need to do. Next item is administrative council business. Again, this is information or requirements that you're looking for some reaction from council. Mr. Bullock?
Mine isn't so much administrative council business as the discussion on the citizens' communication. What was finally resolved? Are we going to actually wait till Jason totally gets back?
Yes.
And keep, well, if he's gone into November, we aren't going to have the conversation till November. If this strike lingers on and on and on, does that mean that we didn't put a timetable on it?
No, we just set it on him, and we're assuming that it will not go on forever, and that he will be back soon. I did speak to him today, and he's hoping for some solution, but that was the vote for today, and it was 6-2, so it has been moved.
At some point, Mr. Mayor, if the council chooses, you can move to reconsider and bring it back on the floor, but that takes action of the council. As it is right now, you're absolutely right.
Okay,
It's
and that would
indefinite.
be done by someone who did vote to do this,
On the
correct?
prevailing side.
Prevailing side. Thank you.
In bringing it back, we could bring it back, but it would have to be posted for a future meeting. We couldn't bring it back and talk about it. So if we did it for the prevailing next week and talking to the people with Verizon that are on strike and they say, you know, we are going to wait it out, no matter how long it takes, we could bring it back for the week after next, correct?
Yeah, I know.
As long as it's posted a week in advance, so the citizens have notice of a posting. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Snyder?
Yes, I received several calls over the weekend about some activity that was going over, I want to say it's La Chispa, is it La Chispa still? Thank you, La Chispa. They were having some kind of an event over there. I don't know too much about it, but I got several calls about noise and music that was real loud that was going on for several days in a row. I don't know what it was, but one of the citizens asked me if they had a permit to do so or if they needed a permit to do so. Can anyone tell me anything about that?
I can check into it. I don't know if anybody...
I didn't know anything about it, so I didn't know what exactly to say.
We need to check.
Okay.
We'll get back to you, though. We'll
If you
make
check
sure
into
that's
that
in the
for me.
report next week.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ms. Carson?
Well, it's that light on 104th again in the highway. It's a mess. You will sit there and the light will be green. to go from 104th and either cross over Highway 85 or make a left, but you're stuck at the red light there at Bell Creek. Then you'll get the green light at Bell Creek, and now the light there to cross the highway is red. I have received a lot of complaints. I actually got stuck there, sitting there. And once again, I'm watching traffic deter out of that and drive through Bell Creek. And I think we're putting a lot of traffic in there. I don't understand these lights, because one day you'll go there, they seem like they're working perfect, they're in sync, and everything's running good, and then havoc again. But it really can back this up just terribly down 104th. And I know most of the residents I'm talking to, they're telling me they're trying to avoid 104th. And I know I am, because, and it's not the construction, it's the lights. So if we could take another look.
We'll make sure we get an item in next week's update to you.
Okay. And you are keeping count of the trains, right, so that we know?
Only when I'm on the phone with you.
Ms. Teeter?
Yes, I have a few things. One was the chip and seal project that was done in Frontera Village. I've tried to explain to these people, I mean, initially you're going to have rocks and all, but it's very beneficial in the long run. I don't know if you've gotten any phone calls, Mr. Clements, on this? And now that the rocks have settled down and all, I've not had any damage to my car, and I've shared that with these citizens, but I don't know if you're aware of the complaints or not. You have been contacted? Okay. I just wanted to bring that forward. Secondly, the pond on hole 17 at Buffalo Run. You have to be aware of that. The water is stagnant. It is smelly when you're driving. Have you smelled it, Mr. Flannery?
I sure have.
On Chambers, it's just horrible.
As a matter of fact, every time we drive by there, and I first noticed it last week. I think it's been ongoing for a couple of weeks before that. So I actually inquired on Saturday. I was looking for Paul, but he luckily was not there. And I asked the pro that was there, and I said, "What is going on with that lake?" And he said it's a phenomenon called lake turnover, and I don't know what causes it. I don't know how. We need to look into it more. I was asking, why can't you shock it? Why can't you do certain things to it?
Or drain it? Are plans of draining it in the process? Or
well, I mean, from the people that they've said that they've recruited to come out and look at this, that it takes about a month for it to settle back down. Believe me, I'm going to hold them to that, and I'm going to go out there, because it's horrible. And
Yes.
I couldn't agree more.
And lastly, I don't know if I'm the only one with this complaint, but I do have a neighbor. There's some trash trucks that I saw this evening on the way home from my employment, and it's where, on Highway 2, where the old police station used to be, now where the historical center is. There's a dumping station there, and he was there, pulled out from dumping, and was... as he was driving, there was some type of liquid that was falling on the streets, and my car, again, this is the third time it's happened, it's just, I can't even park it in the garage, so it must be, I don't know if it's illegal dumping or what, but it's really stinky. Then they go up Highway 2, and then they go are you aware of this, Mr.? Are you? It's horrible. It's absolutely, and I have to underwash the car 2 and 3 times. It's just horrible, and I think there's illegal activity being done there.
We will pay close attention to that and go out and visit the site and monitor that and report back.
Maybe they can pay for the car wash on my car. Thank you for all you do.
Mr. Diaz?
I do have a couple things. One is to piggyback on what Ms. Teeter was talking about in terms of the chip seal over in Frontera. Do you guys know if they're done with that project yet, or are they going to come by with street sweeping? And I ask that just because there is a whole lot of loose gravel that I know makes it look really sloppy.
Let me check.
And that was my request, too, is just leaving the sweeper coming by for the leftover rocks.
There you go.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the request for information on that project. The actual application of the seal and chip is complete. I was up there this afternoon, and they were sweeping it again. They have to go through it several times to get the extra chip. It has been spread out on some of the arterial roads, such as 104th, and they've gone back and cleaned that up substantially. To complete the project, they need to repaint the striping, and that will happen this week. But essentially, the project is complete at this point.
Great. Thank you. And then I did have a neighbor who did express some concern over there just because he's very meticulous with his lawn. One of those guys who mows both ways 3 times a week or whatever. But by the same token, one of the for the project, the no parking sign was put on his grass on a 100-degree day, and it did cause some burn marks. So I don't know how many residents were concerned about that, but it'd be kind of nice if they were a little bit more conscious of that. So thank you. That was pretty much it in terms of that one, so thank you, Mr. Clements.
The contractor, A1, is fielding those types of complaints for damage to vehicles and that sort of thing. So if that's made public, they can get those things taken care of.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the other thing is, I know that Councilman Benson and Councilman McEldowney have brought this up, but in regards to 27J's looking to pass a mill levy bond. Next Tuesday, I'll be speaking at the 27J Board of Education meeting to speak as a citizen and as a community member and the effects of the mill levy and how it's important to pass in 27J. But what I did want to do is I wanted to approach council to see if we are willing to pass a resolution to show our support for the bond issue, so I can go there basically talking as a council member as opposed to just a regular community member. So I wanted to get your thoughts on those.
Okay, anybody on council have a challenge with that?
I would like to see their plan and their campaign plan and what they've got in their budget now.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but they haven't been very successful in the past.
Right. Okay. So that's probably something that we can get to. Yep.
Mr. Gaylor.
So what I'd ask then is that council give a directive for staff to prepare a resolution that you would actually adopt next week for Councilman Diaz to speak, if he's going to speak on behalf of the city. I think that if you give consensus or a motion, let's have a motion to authorize him to speak on behalf of the city, if that's your wish. That would be acceptable, even though we haven't yet passed the resolution. The other choice is you speak as an individual citizen, and then after we pass the resolution, then you could speak on behalf of the city.
Okay. Mr. Diaz, do you want to make that motion since you're kind of filling in the blanks?
I would like to make that motion to pass a resolution to support the 27J mill levy.
And
to draft the
it,
resolution.
And then that you'd be allowed to speak for the council?
Perfect.
Add that to it?
Okay. Let me see if I can remember all those parts.
Say so moved.
So moved.
Does somebody want to?
Shortcut.
I will.
Ms. Snyder?
Second the motion.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I would like to also see what their plan is too first before we do this, because in the past, their plan hasn't always been the best. And I would love, when he speaks, if their plan has holes in it, be able to speak to the holes and say, maybe this would be part of what you want to do, because we would love to pass a resolution supporting you. But we can't do it if this plan is only half a plan and it doesn't come forth with anything. So I'm totally for the resolution. I'm totally for supporting them. But I want to see what we're going to be supporting first, because I don't want to be us walking out on something and they say, well, you guys supported it and it looked bad. So can we just check it out? But I'm totally in favor of doing something that is going to benefit and help the kids. But they need to bring a good plan this time because they haven't in the last 2 elections.
Right, and I totally appreciate that, Councilman Bullock. And the good thing is that their plan this year, and Mr. City Manager Flannery might be able to attest to this, is that they are trying to put together a more well-crafted plan, might be the best way to put it, in getting a few more municipalities involved.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I believe that's their desire. I got to tell you that we haven't seen it, though. And here's what I would recommend, if the council would like to maybe send Councilman Diaz as a emissary of the council to invite them to come and present to the council. And that way, because the intent would be that we want to hear what their plan is and that we could possibly pass a resolution in support of that after they present.
Mr. Diaz, if you would want to change your motion that says we will be in support, or we can be in support after they present their plan to us, that we'll take a vote at that point.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, just,
sure,
I'm sorry,
please, make it easier
I don't mean to
for
jump
me.
in, but I would make the recommendation that the motion be that the council sends Councilman Diaz as an emissary to invite presentation by 27J to the council.
Hey, why don't we go with that?
Okay.
Would that be okay for you?
Yeah, that sounds
and
great.
Ms.
Thank you.
Snyder, is that okay? Any further discussion? Voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion passes.
Great.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Bullock?
The service center up there, the recycle booth, I have pictures, and I was going to bring them, but I was kind of waylaid, of people doing illegal recycle dumping. They aren't recycling, they're dumping. They're using that center as their dump. And every time the waste manager goes up there, if they just pull the big containers off, that's no charge. If they have to clean up couches, TVs, and all the stuff that's around the dumpsters, that's $350 that is charged to this city. They do it every time they go up there. I mean, not 1 or 2 times. If you were to drive up there right now and look between the 2 dumpsters, you would see stuff you would not believe, and don't even look in the dumpster. Because then that's when you realize that the recycle center is a great idea, and I just think it's at a bad spot right now. I would love to, and I know Greg Clemens is going to find me after this and beat me up, but I'd love to put it outside of MSS someplace where they can monitor what these people are dumping, and somebody could say, hey, you can't put that there, because when Esther tells them that, she's had people that have actually told her, well, if you don't want to be in the dumpster, you know, I mean, so I'm just thinking, and there's some stuff they've been pouring in it. I know it's paint, turpentine, any kind of liquid that they have that they need to get rid of. That's where it's done at. And, say what? Oh, okay. They were doing it today. But it's, at first I didn't think there was that much serious. I actually saw the pictures. And the guy's leaving the computer parts and the TV parts, you know, and nobody pays attention to women telling them stop, you know, unless the woman has a gun. And I told Esther, do not shoot anybody. Okay. But that's, I'm going to just drop it at that, because it's gotten to the point. I think I've made my point.
Yes. It goes to one of our older council people who made some comment about shooting him with buckshot. Let's not get into that.
No, I don't think that is a great remedy. What's that, salt? That buckshot, it hurts, but that's salt. No, I'm joking, just joking, cameras. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Marino.
Just to further elaborate on this situation particularly, there does need to be much greater oversight at that location. There are that's a resource for the community, not a dumping ground. So, you know, whether it be the police department or neighborhood services, we just need to keep better tabs on that area, because it's a hindrance for the community in that area, and they've really been fed up with the situation as it is right now.
Chief.
I just wanted to say that we have flagged that area. ADCOM has flagged the address. We flagged it last week after I spoke with Esther Hall, and for some reason they didn't dispatch a car to it. But now it's flagged that they not only dispatch a car, but they contact a supervisor so that we could try to identify some of these illegal dumpers. So we're trying to get there.
Can I say something to the chief, please? Yes. It wasn't one of the major ones. It wasn't Waste Management, BFI, Alpine, it wasn't any of them. It was just, I don't even know if it had anything on the side or not, but
no, those
it's
are
a
the
horrible-looking
violators.
vehicle.
Homeowners, small business, we've got a number of people dumping tires there.
Yeah, this was a trash truck, and it was like biochemical something. It was horrible.
Okay.
So thank you, sir.
Sure.
Okay. And then, okay, so I just have one more thing. I know that a few months back we talked about getting in your travel and mileage and whatever reports we need to get in. I think at that time we had thought that 60 days was a reasonable amount of time to get that done in. We've had a small challenge. We've had a report turned in, now it's the middle of August. We've had a report turned in for costs over $2,000 for mileage for the entire year of 2010. We pay it. I mean, we'll pay what fees need to be paid. The challenge is that's 2010's budget being paid out of 2011's money, which means we're now short in our legislative $2,000 that could have been spent for a trip or for a conference or for something. It would be greatly appreciated, and I'm sure greatly appreciated by staff, if we could, as a council, just decide we're going to pay, and get our stuff in 60 days. It's not an unreasonable amount. It gives you plenty of time, but to come into our 8th month with full records from 2010, there's no way to audit it anyway, but now we're over $2,000 that's been taken out of our legislative budget because we've gone so long. So if we could get some agreement from council that says, get it in 60 days, and if it takes 90 days, it takes 90 days, but 18 months I think is a little out of line. Mr. Bullock?
Okay, it is out of line, and it's totally ridiculous. If I was on staff and somebody sent me a 2010 budget
Over 2,000.
I would say, okay, this cannot be paid out of 2011. You had the whole year of 2010 and then a couple months into 2011 to get this in. This will not be honored. You didn't need the money then, so it's too late. If this, I guess we're going to have to, if this comes up, don't pay it. Nothing from 2010 in August of 2011 should be paid. And if somebody procrastinates that long and decides that they need $2,000 in August of 2011, I'm sorry. I would have told them no, that's a 2010 budget item and it cannot be paid now. The fact that we're doing it is going to be a one-time thing if it was up to me. I'm only one of 9. And the other thing I wanted to bring up when I had it, you said there was a 6-2 vote on move the thing. It had to be 5-2 because it couldn't have been 6-2 because I wasn't here.
Oh, it's 5-2.
Oh, it's 5-2. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can't count. My math is horrible at that hour.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I was trying to figure out, did Jason call up and vote by phone?
Yeah,
or
no,
something?
I fully apologize,
okay.
Mr. Bullock. My
Mr.
math
Mayor,
is horrible.
In an effort to kind of forward some discussion on this, and actually, I'm trying to actually state that I think there's a consensus that I certainly receive from council, even though you haven't said so, and maybe you will in a minute. But I want to come to you with a travel report, a travel policy. a much clearer policy than what you have right now that can address all of these things. And I think there's a number of things that we've seen through this last month that I think have surfaced a couple of issues and questions, not to mention what you've talked about just now. I'd like to maybe take some time to get some feedback from you individually. I have received individual feedback, and maybe there's some documents that you might have that are ones that we can mimic. I think it's going to come up in the budget discussion anyway as we progress in the next few weeks. But I'd like to take a shot with Mr. Gaylor at looking at a travel policy for you all, so that you can actually have something in solid writing that there's no question and no qualms about.
That'd be wonderful. Anybody on council have a challenge with that? That'd be great. And I'd like to offer up, I've got a form that I use that's the same form that you send into accounting, where I just fill in the numbers and it adds and does everything for me, so that my challenge is, I've seen some of the reports that come from us, and they're just pages of handwritten stuff, and you can't read half of what's written.
I think the policy is going to require, documentation.
That'd be
and that
wonderful.
type of
I
thing.
think it'd be a great idea, sir. Anybody have a challenge with that? Not seeing any, sir. I think you have a direction to do that. I don't have anything down here, Mr. Benson.
What kind of documentation would be required for our automobile mileage?
I don't know. I haven't written the policy with Mr. Gaylor yet, but I would suggest that you might be looking at miles traveled, odometer readings, those types of things.
I actually give copies of my day timer, which tells every place of where I've been and who I saw.
On that, I do mine every quarter.
And that's
so
fine.
coming up from CML, my mileage for CML is going to show up in this quarterly thing. So I know you say 60 days, but I do it every 3 months. And
I just said
all my
60
meetings and everything I go to,
Yeah.
every 3 months, I turn in my mileage for it. And
Yeah.
I've had no problem with that one way or another.
No.
But
And-
I think to do a whole year at a time really puts staff at a disadvantage, because that is, we were told at the last council I was on, either every 3 months or every 6 months, but don't turn in a year, because somebody did that the last time, turned in a year's worth of mileage and got paid. Oh, that was me. And that's why I know for a fact that I was told that this is ridiculous. Don't ever turn in a year's worth of mileage, because I kept everything every month and turned it all in one time, and they said, break it down to every 3 months. And that's when I broke
Yeah.
it down to every 3 months.
And I think even the 3 months is reasonable. I just threw out 60 days because it seemed like a number. But I wouldn't have any problem if they showed us 90 days. I just think 12 months, 18 months later is a little excessive. Did you have a comment, Mr. Gaylor?
Just to comment, 3 months is reasonable because by the time the audit's completed and the records for the prior year, it's usually about 90 days. So that would not be an imposition on the current year's budget if you're filing for the end of the previous year.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll go to reports. Mr. Flannery? Look at that. I remembered this time.
Well, actually, one of my report items was the sheriff issue, and I think we've discussed it. The other one is I think next week the Economic Development Department would like to recommend an extension of the incentive program to November, because there's a couple of things brewing that might be tied to it. So, but Brittany and her department will present that next week under another item. So that's about it.
I have a copy of the drawings that were submitted by Mr. Rico for any member of the council that wants them. I have 9 sets here. So if you want them, please see me right after the meeting. I'll give you a copy. Okay, that's all I have.
Yes, just a couple of things. I attended the Adams County Economic Development Business Appreciation Breakfast, and I have to say it was a packed house. I was really excited to see how many people and how many businesses showed up to that breakfast, well attended by the city and by the Economic Development Group. There was Michelle and Lisa both there. Wanted to thank them, and Tom was there as well. And it was just a, What? Well, yes, of course, the mayor. Hadn't gotten there yet, but yeah, and it was the mayor, myself, Councilman Moreno, and Councilman Diaz, and it was really a great turnout, and it was exciting to see that, things are slowly turning around for business, so that we're on the upside, which is always a good thing. Wanted to thank Jimmy Birds and Color Graphics. They had a reception for the Colorado Motor Carriers Association. I attended that as well, and wanted to thank him. He does a great job, and it was also a well-attended event. Attended the neighborhood outreach, and as always, Pioneer Park really gets the big crowd. So it was a really great outreach, and I want to thank everybody, council and staff, and everyone that was involved in putting that together. I think the new way that we're doing this, or this last time around, the new method of doing it was much more, it just seemed to flow a lot better. And I also wanted to congratulate Buffalo Run. So I think it's a great that the course has come along, and that it's doing well, and in its celebration, I just wanted to congratulate them. Thanks.
Cool. Yes, just two things. I also attended the outreach at Pioneer Park, and the way it was ran, I do agree. Before, people had to stand in line, get campaign literature information, or go to every booth before they could even eat a hot dog or anything. So the way it's ran now, I think people appreciate it extremely. Also, congratulations, 15 years to Buffalo Run. I attended that festivity yesterday. It was very well attended, free golf, free food, and that's all I have. Thank you, sir.
No report, just congratulations to Buffalo Run. Residents love that golf course.
I also love the ACD breakfast. That was great. And the one person I do want to mention, Jim Hayes, was also there, sitting right next to me. So thanks to Jim for coming. Sorry, Tracy, you forgot him. And that's pretty much it. No reports. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. On Wednesday, I had a meeting with several people from Neighborhood Services. We discussed some issues going on with some of Shay's property with Marty Zemchik out there at the site. And we went around and looked at some of the future parks in Ward 2, which I didn't think were exactly being cared for in the proper manner. But I think that they know about these things now, and I think they're going to be taken care of. I've gotten a lot of complaints from people that I'm talking to, and I say, you have any problems with what's going on in the city? And they'll point across the street and say, yeah, what about that over there? That's owned by the city. So I think that those things are going to be handled. Also, Thursday morning, I went to the ACED breakfast. I had to leave a little bit early because I had to go to the E470 meeting out at E470 at 6th and E470. I also went to the motor carrier event, color graphics with Jimmy Burge, 8025 Pontiac, at 5 o'clock, and then at 6 o'clock went over to the outreach. After that, went to a tribute to our RTD representative, Ken Riley, as being the Colorado Labor Leader of the Year. Friday, we had the State Transportation Advisory Committee, where we see the State Transportation Advisory Committee does just that. We advise the State Transportation Committee at CDOT, and we take votes on things to forward to them. There were a lot of things that were up for what we call the Tiger III applications. This is federal money that you can apply for. And one of the things that was brought up was an airport access to the Eagle County Airport so that they can bring in 767 aircraft and have nonstop flights between there and London, which I thought was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard, that if the ski areas want that, they ought to pay for it themselves, but that came in second in the voting. We also did vote on the extension of the hot lanes from on I-25 north from the Boulder Turnpike up to 120th. So that'll be one of the three that will be recommended by the State Transportation Advisory Committee. There was a discussion about the increase in the federal gasoline tax, and I'm thinking that before September 30th, we're going to know about that. It could be like a 15-cent increase in the federal gasoline tax. But we'll know by, it's either going to be that or nothing. We'll know by the end of September. Sunday, I went by the Buffalo Run 15th anniversary. There were a lot of people out there. The food was good, and a lot of people were having a lot of fun. And congratulations on 15 years of operations from the jewel in our crown. Thank you. That's all I had.
Mr. Bullock?
Yes, before I attended the meeting tonight, I was down at the Denver City Council meeting, and I was testifying on a park that we want to get renamed, and I was watching how they conduct their meeting and everything, and I was thinking about the differences and the similarities in our meeting and how they get things done. But one of the things I noticed, right in the middle of their meeting, when they finish their first bit of business, which is the bulk of it, they take a 20-minute recess to set up for the second part of the meeting. And they will be finished, they start at 5:30 and they're usually done by 7:30 or 8, even with the recess. And I'm thinking, how do they do this? But I'm going to explore that a lot more, because I'm thinking if we can work that into ours where we can get a bulk done at one time, it would be great. I attended the neighborhood outreach last Thursday, and it was fantastic crowds there. There were a lot of people that had questions and comments on different items, but nobody seemed to be upset about anything. There were people that had issues, but they were happy with the way the city is going. And it was kind of surprising, because you always expect to see the few people telling you what's going wrong with the city, and we didn't get that at the neighborhood outreach. At least I didn't. Maybe somebody else did. Yesterday I was at the golf course for the Buffalo Run 15th anniversary, and I was at the same time that Kathy was there. And I was getting my food when a gentleman up there was talking about how all the commercial development is up north. And I was, Yeah, all the development is up north. They were supporting the whole city. And I just got my food and went over and sat down, and I was thinking to myself, I'm not even going to comment. I'll let Kathy talk to him, and she did a great job of talking to him. And she said, have you ever heard of Suncor? Oh, yeah, Suncor does a little bit for the city. I was okay. I decided that I'm staying out of this conversation, because if that's their belief, you aren't going to change it. But the 15th anniversary was great. It was a lot of people enjoying themselves that could play, couldn't play, and just sat there and watched other people play. I talked to Tom. I talked to the mayor. I don't know when Jim came, but Jim came between the time I walked from the driving range over to my car, because his car was close to mine, but I never saw him. So I know he was there, but I saw Apollo. Well, and he was in the jump castle. And his kids were at home. Okay, so but it was really enjoyable. So no, he really wasn't, but I think he wanted to go. Okay, but it was great, and I mean the staff up there put it together perfect. The food was good, everything was set up real nice. You had an informative staff that was not only able to answer all the questions, you had more people out there showing people how to hit a ball. And I was thinking, where did all these people come from? But we had a great staff out there, so I want to give kudos to them, because they did great yesterday. And anybody that missed it, you really missed out, because it was really nice. Thank you.
And the weather was beautiful. It was gorgeous.
It clouded up at the right time, so we weren't burning up.
Only because I know you always like to be the last one to talk. Mr. Marino.
You know me too well. Just wanted to thank the citizens for coming to our second neighborhood outreach. I thought it was a great event, and always great to see people get involved in the community, get educated about the things that are going on. And only other thing is there's an exciting development to report from Housing Authority, but I will update you on that next week once everything is finalized. Thanks.
Okay. I want to thank Jimmy Bird. I mean, he just jumped into this and invited all these truckers to his place and fed them food, and it was really nice. That's a big part of our business in the South, the part that's not Suncor. And so it was really nice for him to do this because it was more just a gathering. They didn't have an agenda. They didn't have anything. They were just there to have some fun. So it was really cool. Thank you all for going. ACED, it was wonderful having those 4 businesses up there saying why things are getting better and how they're getting better. It was terrific to hear the positives. You get tired of those people coming out of Washington telling everybody the sky is falling. It may be falling back there, and that would probably be good for us if it did. But out here, we're going to get stuff around. Thank you all for coming tonight. If there be no further business come before this board, we're out of here. Thank you. Drive safe. Don't leave without me because I have a package in the car for me. Do you have stuff for me to sign?
Yeah, let me get up there so I can